was with us today.
Sterling's thinking
What
more
if I
height
said
than
that
weight
randomly?
If he was called that.
What'd you say, Dylan?
I said you're thinking more height than weight, that it would be flattering to be called that.
Yeah, I guess when you're 5'10", 180, if I get called that, I feel pretty confident. But if I'm 6'5", 3 bills, maybe tiny. Maybe we'll call him tiny.
That's right. It's got to be it's like me calling, hey, Sterling, what's up, big guy?
Yeah.
Hey, what's up, big fella? How you doing, big guy? What's up, brother? Yeah, old Biggin over here. Oh, look at that. Hey, what's up, Biggin? Yeah, just a good old boy.
I think
Ironic
Sterling gets
nickname.
Country
Just looking at
strong.
his face.
Yeah, I get it. But I still
Yeah.
think I like mine. I'm going to, there's one thing
Most
about
people-
me. I'm going to die on a hill. Well, no, I'll get injured on a hill. Again, I don't want to die on a hill because
right.
that sounds just horrible.
Because, Dylan, there's one thing that people will look at Sterling and think, you know what, that's a country good old boy right there.
That's a Southern
the first
Indiana.
thought.
It's a Southern Indiana boy.
First thought anybody will have looking at his perfectly coiffed hair and his finely mustachioed face. That guy is a good old boy, just a good old boy, country boy. You know what? Him and Larry the Cable Guy probably grew up in the same neighborhood, I would guess. You know what? Those say have a lot of things
Baling
in
a
common.
lot of
I would
hay.
guess. Sterling Holmes.
Baling a
I,
lot of
I
hay.
did
right.
shuck corn. Okay, I did shuck corn growing up. That was down in
believe
Henryville,
you.
Indiana. I was sitting on my grandparents' back stoop, just sitting there shucking corn. So that I did do. But
They
besides
handed
that,
you one cob. They handed you, and you did one, and you were like, you know what? That actually hurt my nail.
I didn't say how many
I'm going to go
corns.
in and play some. I'm going to go in and play some PlayStation 2.
I didn't say
Sorry.
how many bushels I shucked. See, I said bushel. Smart guy over here.
I didn't say how many corns. I didn't say how
Ears.
many corns.
How many ears of corns?
Either way, 913-912-4810 if you want to
Didn't
weigh in
you
on
miss
this,
us?
you certainly can.
Didn't you miss us, Jason?
Didn't
You
you
know
miss
you-
me?
did-
I mean, come on.
we all missed each
Of
other.
course. Of course. I was traveling yesterday, heading here to Lake Tahoe for the week, and, got to listen sporadically here and there to the show, got to hear the quarterback rankings, which was really interesting. I thought Keystone Light probably lost his internship immediately when he had Joe Burrow as the 8th best quarterback in the league. I thought that was a hot take. I did enjoy, though, by the way, when we was at Keystone that had Jordan Love number 10, and Sterling was like, "Oh, what an idiot!" Right? I mean, come on. And then
We go down the
Dylan
line.
and Jack both had Jordan Love higher.
And I'm like, I'm still shocked by that. Like Jordan Love, the guy.
I thought that was funny.
He's always injured and inconsistent. I'm sitting here. Trevor Lawrence won a playoff game. Huh? I don't have him in my top 10. What are we doing here?
Yeah, I just thought that was funny. You're like, oh my God, we're all going to make fun of Keystone together, right, guys? How dumb he is for his Jordan Love. Hey, everybody, join me in a chorus of being on the same side of history, and let's make fun of the intern. What's that? You guys have Jordan Love ranked higher? Okay, I'm the one out on a ledge. All right, fantastic, great.
Okay, well,
You're
know
going
what?
to get injured on that hill.
Yeah, no, those three will get injured on that hill, and I will be standing fine, healthy on my hill.
We'll see. We'll see. But I did enjoy that, so I got to listen sporadically. I didn't hear the first hour of the show yesterday, so I definitely apologize for that, Sterling. I am forever in your debt because did not get to hear that conversation. But we'll talk some Royals here in the first hour. Les Norman will join us at noon, as I said, and then Todd Lebo, like we were talking about. He is down in Dallas with Soren Petro. Big 12 Media Days going on today and tomorrow. Again, K-State today, KU tomorrow. I believe during Soren's show, we'll probably hear a bunch of the K-State players. They've got 5 of them there in attendance down in Dallas today. The players have their quote-unquote breakout session later this afternoon around 4 o'clock or so. So maybe because of us being a station in Kansas City that Soren may be able to talk to some of those players a little bit beforehand. But I'm expecting some players later on today with Soren Petro, Chris Kleiman. Hopefully we'll talk with Todd Lebo and play some Chris Kleiman clips for you throughout the show. Mark Donovan will be we'll hear from him as he talked yesterday and had some interesting things to say, the timeline, time frame, deadline, however way you want to describe it, however way you want to present it publicly of what this thing is. We know the clock is ticking and will continue to tick because there is a deadline. There is a time when that lease is going to expire out at the Truman Sports Complex, and they're going to have a place to play, whether it be the Royals that we know are not going to be playing after the lease, and the Chiefs that Mark Donovan has said that they are not going to break the lease. So if they move to the west side of the state line, that will be after the lease expires there at Arrowhead. Or if they renovate, they will be having to renovate while also playing football in said stadium. And that is not just a fly-by-night operation. That is going to be figuring out how you're working with different parts of the stadium to still make it usable during game days through the season, because it's not going to be a 5-month renovation. They're not going to be able to renovate from late January to early August. You're going to need a decent amount of time, because right now they're doing some renovations for the World Cup next year. They're tearing out the first 10 rows around the bowl for the pitch for the World Cup next year, and that's how this season will be played, with whether that will be temporary seating, how they're going to figure those things out with those first 10 rows around the bowl. It will be different when we see Arrowhead for the first time at the preseason games. It'll be different than what it looked like last year to accommodate the World Cup next year, and then they will go back to fixing those. Unless, of course, they have already figured out what the renovations are going to be, and maybe that is step one of figuring out, that lower bowl, if they are going to move that around in any way, shape, or form, or if they are going to add the end zone suites like they saw there in Vegas. Then some of that will already be done. So we'll see. We'll see what happens, whether it's renovation or it is building new. We thought last year we were going to know one way or another, have a pretty decent idea. And last year in April, what we found out is their first go-around is not the plan they're going to go for. What we know now is that the Chiefs may renovate or head over to Kansas. And we know the Royals will not be playing at the Crossroads. That's what we know a year later after that vote in April, where we thought, at least I did, I thought the vote would pass, and it did not pass. It got roundly defeated by every area. You couldn't even take a small portion of the population and go, well, it won here. No, even as you get further out east, it lost even more.
Jason,
So
imagine my shock,
it was
Jason.
rough.
I did that show that night, and we all thought it was going to pass, and it went from, okay, so we're just starting poorly. Of course, the early voters are going to come in and be opposed, but it's going to change as the night goes on, right? No, it did not. That was a live show that I remember doing, and I was beyond shocked by the results. It was crazy.
Yeah. And looking back, reading the tea leaves, seeing the signs, seeing how disorganized it was, that you can understand why the voters voted the way that they did. But as we said at the time, that was the last chance to guarantee that both the Royals and Chiefs would be remaining in Missouri. There is certainly a chance that both the Royals and Chiefs remain in Jackson County, but that timeline continues to tick. I mean, the sand in the hourglass gets less and less, and as we hear from Mark Donovan, and we'll talk about it in the 11 o'clock hour, playing some of those clips, as we hear from Mark Donovan, they're looking at probably an April 2026 vote to, if they were to decide to renovate. I should say that. That's the caveat, the qualifier there. If they were to decide to renovate, they would be looking at an April 2026 vote. And if that gets voted down, it's going to be real interesting moving forward from that standpoint. So we'll hear from Mark Donovan coming up in the 11 o'clock hour as well. 913-912-4810 is the text line. What do we make of this Royals team that goes 4-3 on the road trip and returns home to a place where they can't score runs, they can't hit home runs, they don't get extra base hits? It's boring baseball out at Kauffman, right? Isn't that what we were talking about in June? That it's one thing to not be good, as you would say, Sterling, be entertaining and bad, or be boring and good, but don't be boring and bad. And that's what the Royals were at Kauffman Stadium. They were boring and bad. That Tampa Bay Rays series was just an embarrassment. 5-1, 3-0, 4-0. And then the Dodgers, they score, 14 runs, but the way those runs are mixed up, they get one win because they score 9 runs in one game, and they follow that up with one single run on Sunday in a rubber match game. And, that, as we've talked about, those rubber match games have been a problem for some time now. But it is a team that ends up going 4-3 on the road trip, and now 1-0 on this homestand. So they are 5-3 in that time. But we talked about the next 2 weeks, that road trip, Sterling, this time last week, the road trip there to Seattle, and they had just lost the night before. They lost that Monday. And so getting ready for that Tuesday night game where now they are 5-2 since that Tuesday night game. They've got 2 more against the Pittsburgh Pirates. The struggling Mets come into town, and that is the All-Star break. And this is still a Royals team that, while they are in second place in the division, we look at what it will take to make the wild card. They are 5 games out of the wild card. They have to pass 4 teams ahead of them. But here's the problem with that, and what we've talked about, Sterling, before. I would say it would be better if the Royals were 7 games out behind only 1 team than 5 games out behind 4 teams. Because the odds of you playing 7 games better than just 1 team, I think, are greater than you playing better, 5 games better than Seattle, 3 games better than Boston, 1 game better than the Angels, a half game better than Texas, while also holding off anybody behind you that could play better baseball than you along the way. Those are a lot of teams in the mix there that you've got to pass those teams, and the difficulty there is they were 5.5 games out of the wild card last week. They went 5-2. They're a half game out. That's the point. Yeah. That's how difficult it is the teams ahead of them will move around and they might change, but as far away from the wild card as you're going to be, it's going to be difficult for you to make up the ground that you gave up in June. Now, they're only 4 games under 500, from their season low of 7 games under 500, but still 4 games under 500 with this, last 5 games to go here on this homestand. And I don't know what the record needs to be going into the All-Star break if you want to say they would go from sellers to buyers or they're still in a holding pattern. I would say what has happened is if you are moving, let's create a football field. Okay, so the east end zone, if we're looking at it, and the west end zone, the 50-yard line is directly as the hold. The east end zone is you are buying. The west end zone is you are selling. I think what this week has done, Sterling, is gone from your own 35-yard line to maybe your own 40. While they might be getting close to a hold, they should still squarely be on the selling side of, the trade deadline. You win the next 5 games, and now you're a game over 500, and you reassess at the All-Star break, you might be able to complete that, 15-yard pass to where now you're on the other side at the 45 or the 40-yard line, depending on where you were, and heading towards the next 2 weeks of baseball to the end of July of whether or not you want to be realistic in saying you are sellers. But that is a lot of ground to make up. That's a lot of wins. And just because they played this way the last few games against an Arizona team that has their struggles and injuries and a Pittsburgh team that is just god-awful does not mean that this is a team that's going to start playing with the Cubs and the Guardians and, the Tigers and, Blue Jays and Red Sox and Rangers and teams like that. They've got some, easier games the rest of the season with some teams, but there are so many teams right there that are in that mix of making the wild card that it's difficult to look through and go, okay, you get a break here, because they got a break with the White Sox and the A's, and they didn't take advantage of that. In fact, they worked over that break. You're supposed to take a break. These guys were so, committed to their craft, Sterling, that they were given a break by their boss, and they said, you know what, I'm going to work right through it, and I'm not going to take that break. And now with Pittsburgh, maybe they're taking that break. Hopefully that's the case. They hit 4 home runs last night for the first time this year. They have a multi-home run game at home. Did you see Sam McDowell's tweet to Curtis Seabolt last night?
That was insane. Yes, I did.
One of the most surprising and jaw-dropping stats that you'll see of showing how anemic this Royals offense has been at home. That was the Royals' first multi-home run game at home. There are 88 players that have a multi-home run game at home. 88 players that have a multi-home run game at home in their home ballpark. 88 players this year. The Royals, as a team, had their first one, and second fewest is 7 more than the Royals of multi-home run games in their home ballpark. It can happen. You can hit home runs at Kauffman. They hit 4 of them last night. So that's my assessment of where they are. But baseball seems like it's such a, an ebb and flow game night to night. It's like the macro and the micro. The micro, we're looking at it game by game. And then it starts to flow into the macro by series, but ultimately it's overall stretches of baseball. And over the last week, they might have picked up a first down. The problem is they were at their own 30 or 35-yard line when they picked up that first down, to me at least, whereas a month ago we might have been saying they were on their side, but they kept getting penalties. And they went from a direct hold to then fully encompassed in the selling part. And I think they should still be looking at selling. And, they shouldn't be asking Brian Reynolds to switch clubhouses this week unless there's also the plan of, maybe selling off some pieces. That they should not be trading prospects to try to get this team to a playoff spot. If Reagans is not going to be healthy, they're going to reassess in mid-August, like he's throwing again. So at least it's a positive update. But I'm happy with the way that they have won the last 2 games, 13-3 combined. But this is a still wait-and-see pattern until Sunday's game is over on July 13th. And if they wrap up this homestand 5-0, then yeah, we can maybe reassess to a better degree.
So what I'm looking at right now with your football analogy, Patrick drops back. He is under duress. He rolls right. He throws it up. All of a sudden, who was emerging from
Kelsey.
A sea of purple? It was Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill, is he going to catch it, or is it going to be the MVS one where it hits his hands and he drops it? So we'll find out. I was seeing the Ravens game. What was that, 4th and 20 or whatever that was? And Patrick
run into his right?
Yeah, right into his right.
I think it was like 4th and 10. I don't think it was 4th and 20, but it was still like fourth down. But yes.
It gets longer and longer every time I bring this up to my...
4th and 45.
Yeah, 4th and 45, throws it, and Tyreek down there somewhere. So it's going to come down to, can they sweep the Pirates, and then can they take 2 of 3 from New York? If they do that, I think they're more in a legit hold pattern. And I say hold as in maybe you keep Carlos Estevez. Maybe you don't try and trade... you don't really have maybe India. You don't really have a lot of in my opinion, the Royals don't have a lot of guys that I think that other teams are really looking for outside of Carlos. Maybe John Schreiber, Angel Zerpa. I doubt it. And then obviously Seth Lugo. I think Seth Lugo is by its own category. I trade Seth Lugo every single time personally.
Me too.
I think the Royals should trade Seth Lugo every single time personally. Unless you were prepared to give him a 3-year, $75 million contract, then my opinion changes. If you are willing to do that, then okay, fine, keep Seth Lugo. If you're not willing to do that, then you must trade him. And I don't think it has to be either or. I think they're separate deals. I think the Royals could still go out and get a controllable bat for the future, whether it is Brian Reynolds or someone else, but they should not be made in the same deal. I think if you trade Seth Lugo, you're looking to get some young but slightly ready prospects and players back. We've talked about the Dodgers time after time. I'm not saying you trade him and bring back a middling bat, right? I don't think you trade Seth Lugo because the Pirates wouldn't even want him either way because of the contract situation, all that. But the point still remains for a veteran bat. I think they're separate deals. But to me, Lugo needs to go either way because he is going to be the most highly touted rental player, I think, on the market. And if you're the Royals, you do have to set your sights for 2026. And if you back in this year like the Tigers did last year, well, that's just great. Because, again, I think you're right. Noah Cameron is ready to go. But what is the timeline on Cole Reagans? That, to me, is still such a big deal.
Yeah, look, 15 games can make a massive difference in the standings. Obviously, we know that. We're not talking about Seth Lugo making 4 or 5 more starts, or you get, what could be a decent return on his services to a different team. So if he stays healthy, he'd be looking at anywhere from 13 to 15 starts the rest of the season. Having somebody else in his place that we don't even know who that would be. Like, who would be starting right now if somebody else goes down? Would they, bullpen game? Would it be an opener? Alec Marsh isn't ready to go. Kyle Wright's not ready to go. Cole Reagan's not until mid-August. So,
Dick Mountain.
Right? I mean, that might be the case. Like, okay, so let's take it from that standpoint. If you've got Dick Mountain there, so what if you've got 15 starts of Seth Lugo or 15 starts of Rich Hill, how much worse are you? Certainly you're not as good. How many more games would you have won along the way? Would it have made a difference of, one, making the playoffs, but also making a run through the playoffs? Because that, to me, there is something of value in making the playoffs in back-to-back years. But just because there has been a franchise history of futility in making it back-to-back years doesn't mean that you need to sacrifice 2026 or potentially what could be better for 2026 for 2025 just because making back-to-back postseasons is not something you've done very often in your history. Okay, well, you also haven't made postseasons 2 out of 3 years in your history, because that would be a first, right?
Yeah.
If you make the postseason next year, be like, wow, they've never met. They're making the playoffs 2 out of 3 years. I'm talking about going back to since '85, right? And we look at 2015, and we look at 2016 or 2014, 2015, and then trying to make it in 2016. And man, can you make the playoffs 3 years in a row? And 16 and 17 and one final run with that group. Okay, understandable with all of that stuff that was going on. But this whole conversation about, well, there's real tangible value in making the playoffs back-to-back years. Granted, stipulated. But is that value because there's real tangible value in making it back-to-back years, or is the value baked in the fact that you haven't done it very often in your history, and that's the value of just saying, hey, we've done it again for the first time in 10 years? How about if you barely make the playoffs and lose, do you hang the banner of back-to-back postseasons? Or if you don't make the playoffs, but you get something back for Lugo, get something back for what could be Estevez, get something back for maybe Fermin. Who knows? You're throwing darts. Maybe you become better for 2026, and then you make an ALCS, or maybe you win a division, because that flag, you hang that flag out there, you win a division. You actually do, but you don't hang a flag for back-to-back playoff appearances. No. It's not a flag that you actually get to fly. It's cool, but it's only cool because this franchise hasn't done it very often. That's what makes it cool here. It's not cool in New York. It's not cool in some other places. You made the playoffs back-to-back years. Oh, that's pretty awesome. Why? Because your franchise has sucked for so long. That's what makes it awesome, not because it's actually some sort of standard or some sort of great achievement in baseball to do that. It's tough to get there, but if that's what you're basing it on, is that the futility of your franchise has been so bad for so long that making back-to-back postseasons is worth not getting something back for Lugo just to lose a game or two in the wild card or losing the divisional series, I don't see it as being worth it, because while I would like playoff the lottery tickets of making the playoffs, Sterling, I'd also like to be closer to what 14 and 15 was, and even what last year felt like to a degree, then you're just sort of kind of coasting into the postseason, and you can't really make a run. You're not really good enough to do that. You can see that the other teams are better. As opposed to 2015, they were the favorites. Go and win the whole thing, and they did.
I don't disagree, but I do think baseball is a sport where it's even funny where it is a 5-7-3, I guess 3-5-7, games where I still think almost anything can happen, especially when you have great starting pitching like the Royals have. I still trade Lugo every single time, as we've mentioned. Mm-hmm. But even if you trade Lugo, you still have Bubic, Waka, and either you go with Cole Reagans if he's healthy, or quite frankly, the way that Noah Cameron's pitched, I think you can throw him into your top three right there, and I think you're fairly happy, especially obviously with Waka and Bubic. So yeah, I think the Royals can still sneak in, and even without Lugo, and still have
Agreed.
I don't know if you'd have the pitching advantage anymore, but I don't think you're going to have a massive disadvantage. And again, I do think 2026, you're correct. If you can build and get pieces back that help you then and potentially make this team sizably better versus just trying to sneak in, I think you have to make that happen.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. 913-912-4810. Let's take a time out. We are here in Lake Tahoe where excited for the next 4 days, what it can bring. American Century Championship, a fantastic event, a great Kansas City company that, gives back so much money to cancer research. Over $2 billion they have donated with the Stiers Institute over the years. $2 billion, billion with a B, that they have donated and given to cancer research. 40% of all of their revenue goes to cancer research, and so a great Kansas City company. They put on a great event, and we love being out here every year, and we certainly appreciate them having us out here, and we'll see who we will end up getting to talk to over the next 4 days. We've got a number of people lined up, and a number of people that we plan on talking to out here. Some football, maybe some baseball, some entertainers along the way. So we'll see what happens with that. And a big shout-out to our sponsors this week, Bobside Auto Group. One name, 4 locations. The Bobside Auto Group, trust is their tradition. Zero Res. Visit ZeroResKC.com to book your appointment today. Remember, spell Zero Res backwards or forwards. It's the right way to clean. Window Nation, get 50% off windows plus no interest until 2030. Visit windownation.com today. And GAN Asphalt and Concrete, the world is coming to Kansas City. Will your parking lot be ready? Whether it's simply faded lines, unsafe sidewalks, or parking lot potholes, GAN Asphalt and Concrete can help. Yeah, that's right, the World Cup coming next year. We will take a timeout. We'll come back. We will continue rolling. We'll get into some texts coming in about this Royals team, and even if they continue to play better baseball, is it the best decision moving forward to move on from Seth Lugo? Because Sterling, to your point, and I completely agree, trading Seth Lugo does not automatically mean you do not make the playoffs. It means you have to find somebody to fill in those 13 to 15 starts. Also, that is an assumption that he will be healthy and will be making all 13 to 15 starts that he would be scheduled for the rest of the way. So we'll get into a little bit more of that as well. 913-912-4810. We'll hear from Mark Donovan coming up at 11 o'clock. Les Norman joins us at noon. Todd Lebo in Dallas. More Zone coming up next. out here on the driving range and then on the course today, and we'll bring over and see who we talk to and what conversations we get into. So it's always fun not knowing what we're going to end up talking about and who we're going to end up talking to. So we'll see how that goes the rest of this week. And it's presented by the Bobside Auto Group, Zero Res, Window Nation, and then Gann Asphalt and Concrete. Also a shout-out with the Big 12 Media Days going on, Todd and Seren from Dallas today and tomorrow, technically Frisco, but from Jerry World, Jera. They are down there today and tomorrow, and that's presented by the Bobside Auto Group and Choice Solutions. Make the right choice today by going to choicesolutions.com for their trusted IT consulting and managed services. 913-912-4810. Text comes in, says, all is well again. Are we still on the Zumwalt needing reassigned, averaging almost 5 runs per game in July? Interesting question, because the players are the ones that have to go out there and play, and the coaches are the ones that coach. Look, as I said, what was it? Man, maybe 2 weeks ago. I'm not really sure when it was, but God, I hope they go out there and they just start, hitting the cover off the baseball and scoring a bunch of runs. And so we don't have to talk about this because, I'd rather them be talking about, scoring a bunch of runs and winning games rather than which coaches need to be fired and having these, closed-door players-only meetings, which, winners win and losers meet. So I'd rather that be the case. But if you felt like Zumwalt was an issue before, then having a hot stretch of baseball shouldn't change that. What I would say is clearly the Royals were not thinking that Zumwalt was the issue unless they were saying, we'll give it to the All-Star break. We're not going to make a move right now, and then at the All-Star break we'll see where we're at. But my issue with that, Sterling, would be if you are questioning whether or not he's the guy, then you've already kind of made your decision. You've been around him for 3 years. And if now you're questioning whether or not his message is being heard, then you've answered your own question.
A 6 to 8 game stretch should not change your viewpoint on if he's the guy or not. 100% agree.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the day, we have a large enough sample size to say, hey, I still don't think he's the guy. You're right. It's great. I'm happy. If this continues, sure, we can entertain another conversation, but we still have 92 games played with 3 guys OPSing over 700. A 5 to 7 game stretch should not overhaul everything that we have seen to this point. Again, I think you and I have been on the same page. We are not necessarily team fire Alex Zumwalt. We're team reassign Alex Zumwalt. That to me, I think, is the biggest change and difference here. Again, the answer then always becomes, well, then who? Who do you put as your hitting coach? Because Kevin Seitzer's the fun one, but he's not here. He's not coming to KC. He's doing a fine job elsewhere. So I think it's always easy to say, we'll move on from him, but if not him, then who? I guess that would be the point that I would make. I'll be fully transparent here. I haven't really thought about that too much. I've been on the team, hey, probably reassign him, but I'll also fully admit I've not been team, okay, I have 3 guys or a list of dudes in order of who I think the Royals should go after. Hitting coach, shockingly, is not the same as even, we like to say, offensive coordinator in football, right? But you know all the OC's names. It's very difficult to know all the names of every single hitting coach. At least I don't talk about it as much, at least in my circle here, Jason.
Yeah, and look, the question would be like, okay, so this hot stretch of baseball and them scoring runs, if it's coming from, and I'm not saying the answer is one way or another, I'm just presenting the conversation here. If it's coming from, okay, well, Bobby's doing what he does, and Indy is doing what he should be doing, and Salvi is hitting the ball hard, and Michael, we've already seen what Michael has done this year, and Zumwalt's already received the credit for, Michael throughout the season, and Vinny doing what Vinny does. If you're seeing this hot stretch from the guys who were already established players, and the other guys are sort of still, the issue, then what's the impact that the hitting coach has made? We still get into the whole, well, what is the role of the hitting coach? But I do wonder, like, okay, well, now the guys who are your big dogs, those are the ones that are hitting the ball and you're scoring. Okay, well, is that the hitting coach or is that just water finding its level? And if it was water finding its level, then was the hitting coach being criticized before? Was that fair? And it was fair because everybody was struggling. The entire offense was so bad. It was fair. And not a 4 and 5 game stretch does, an offensive juggernaut make. But what we have seen is we talked about that the best month for Bobby in his career is July. That late June and July is when Bobby starts turning into Bobby Witt. And in the last 10 games, it is 10 games, but he is batting .440 in the last 10 games. His batting average has gone from 277 to 296. I mean, Bobby was batting at 280 when the announcement came out that he was not going to start the All-Star game, and Jacob Wilson, who was batting .339, was going to start the All-Star game. Well, now Bobby is a game away or so from batting .300. Jacob Wilson is now down to .335. I mean, it's a huge slump for him from .339 to .335. I'm joking, obviously. But clearly they're going in opposite directions, But this is the time when Bobby starts to heat up, and Salvi is hitting the ball hard. I mean, heck, he almost had the home run on the double, but also scoring a bunch of runs against a bad Pittsburgh team last night at Kauffman Stadium. I don't know that that's where we go. It's all fixed. This is one of those to where it took so long for them to dig the hole that you don't just jump out of it in 5 games. You've dug that hole over the course of time. Now you need to prove that this isn't just some hot stretch, because they've had games where they scored a 10 and a 2 and a 7, and then they scored 6 and 4 and 6 in a different stretch. They've had stretches of baseball where it's like, okay, now the offense is turning around. How many times have we had questions or conversations, Sterling, on the show about, all right, is this the catapult for this offense? I mean, we've had it more times than they have had multi-home run games at Kauffman. More than one. I know we've had it more than one time this year, okay? So that's sort of the point, and I get the question. I understand the question of, okay, well, if they're playing, if they're swinging the bats, what about Alex Zumwalt? I mean, if the Royals are addressing that themselves, and they have already made the decision and the All-Star break might be the time to do it.
I think the best point you made is it's almost, at least to me, it's a little bit like Andy Heck with the offensive line, where does he get credit for Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith and Joe Tooney just being good? Because they were already good. How can we give him all the credit for that? But what about the fringe level players? What about the young guys? Where's the growth in those? And we're still waiting to see. Nick Lofton, it was a great home run last night. Still OPSing .595. John Rave, .514. Jack Caglione, .436. I mean, that to me means MJ Melendez was at .282. Not on base, not average, not just slug, OPS. I mean, these are the situations. Sorry, that was 343. These are the situations that we want to see the growth from, and that's where I think the hitting coach has the biggest impact. It's the fringe guys. It is the Hunter Renfroes and the Mark Cannas and the Freddie Fermins and the Michael Massies and Drew Waters. It is the young guys, and we've not seen that growth overall. Even Kyle Isbell, who had that great start, now he's down to OPSing .625. Again, I think you know where I stand on this. I'm happy for the offense getting it turned around. I still don't think Zumwalt's the answer as far as the hitting coach. Again, I'm not saying fire him necessarily from the organization. I am saying reassign. But again, you're right. You don't just jump out of the hole that you dug yourself in. It's like an elephant. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. There's still a lot of elephant left to eat.
How many elephants have you eaten, Sterling, in your life?
0, shockingly.
Okay. Well, you tried to take it like 3 or 4 bites at a time and couldn't do it, so then you're like, well, didn't do it. Couldn't get it.
It was too gamey, the taste. Too gamey. No, I don't think I would eat an elephant. I think they're too majestic of a creature. I feel like I could not do it.
Yeah. I don't know. What's the most exotic food you've had? You've lived an interesting life.
I don't know. It has to be probably some seafood item, but even that, I don't know.
I tried octopus, and in fact, like 2 years ago here in Tahoe, I tried octopus. And I don't even think I could finish it.
It is
just the bite. The bite, I couldn't finish it because it's already in my. I've already psyched myself out, Sterling.
Yeah,
I've already psyched myself out, and that I'm eating the tentacle or whatever of the octopus.
Well,
and
the cups too. It's the tentacles, and you have the cups.
Yeah, like the whole thing. It was just I'd already psyched myself out. I'm eating it. It didn't exactly taste good. So what was the point?
It's like a tequila shot. You just gotta. You cannot think about it. You just gotta go for it.
Just
once
do it.
Once you think about it, you're screwed.
Right, but the tequila shot is supposed to give you at least some sort of an effect afterwards, right? Some liquid courage.
What's the protein? There's a lot of protein in octopus.
That's a good point. That's what it was. The octopus just helps me be healthier. That's what it was. The heart goes right to the heart.
It's lean protein, yeah.
If it's cooked correctly, octopus is very solid. If it is not cooked correctly and it's a little soggy, it is one of the most unedible foods out there. Gators. I think gator's the most overrated.
Oh, I haven't had gator yet. But
it's
no, you know what?
Dude.
I had gator at the
Super Bowl. Yes, I
had gator at the Super Bowl.
Everyone's always like,
it's
chewy chicken.
It was good.
It's like chewy chicken. When have I ever wanted chewy? When have you ever said, yes, chef, can I have some chewy? No, it's
Jason, wasn't it a gator po' boy or something you had that was, I cannot remember. But
it was like it was like gumbo. It was like gator gumbo or something like that.
That's my point, though.
It was awesome.
Gator's
I enjoyed
fine.
it.
Gator
it was spiced up, though.
Yeah, the
it
spices are great.
Right, Sterling, it wasn't gator by itself, so I will say there's a little bit of a cheating on this because the gator was in the dish. And it was all the New Orleans spices that went along with it, right? It's all the Cajun spices that were there. So a little bit different than just having gator cooked as gator. So I've never had that.
You're saying it wrong, but we're all saying it right. It's gator.
Gator.
Sorry.
Gator.
Oh, you.
There you go.
Let me tell you something, Sterling. You ain't had the right gator. Well, if you saying that you had some gator that was chewy chicken with it, let me tell you something. I'll make you some gator, you some bitch. All right, you want to talk stuff? You want to talk down on some gator around here, down there, let's shoot. You know, go Tigers. I'll eat some tiger. I'll eat an elephant. I'm big as an elephant. I'll wrestle an elephant too. Put that elephant, come over here. I'll kick its ass. You know what I mean? I'll take that thing by the horn, by the tusk. I'll rip the tusk off and eat it too. I'll eat some tusk as well because my boys are gonna go out there. We're gonna drive up and down the field, and we're all gonna get us a Hummer.
I liked elk.
That's what I'm saying.
Hey, I'm Coach O. I just love my Hummer. I believe the Hummer is the best vehicle on the road. Big, tough, aggressive, and it represents everything that we want at Ole Miss.
Man.
Everything at Ole Miss right there.
Everything at Ole Miss. It's big, tough, aggressive, and runs out of gas halfway down the field. Get yourself a Hummer.
So anyway, Dylan, most exotic thing you've eaten?
I don't know. I'm not a very fine dining individual like
I'm
Sterling.
with you, dude.
That's,
I'm
I
not.
would say gator. Would probably be it. Gator's good. It's good.
Elk is good.
Oh, yes.
Oh
Yes.
boy, that was close.
That would have been
That
great,
would've been
man.
great.
Oh, man. Wow, why couldn't we get that one?
I know.
Dylan?
Listen,
Why'd you
hey,
have to catch yourself?
Listen, I'm a pro. All right.
Why'd you have to catch
I don't
yourself?
speak a
Dang
lot,
it.
but boy, my shooting percentage is not great. Like Sterling ends up in the cuts, but he's talking on the mic all the time.
It's a good
I end
point.
up in the cuts with a way higher efficiency rating than Sterling.
I'm
That's
J.R.
right. Sterling
Smith,
is a-
but you're like Bob Sura. You're spot up shooter.
100%.
You're just
Sterling is a volume shooter, and Dylan's a 3-and-D guy.
Yep.
man.
Off the
Damari
bench.
Carroll out there, just
There
the
you go.
junkyard
That's
dog.
right. Yeah, how about he gave you Damari Carroll as the KU fan there, Dylan?
Yeah, I'll take it.
I gave him
How about
Bob
that?
Sura
He's a hell of a
earlier.
player.
I like Bob Sura. I don't
What
know
about
his
Ochai?
stats were.
Couldn't give him
Couldn't get
Ochai?
Ochai.
Not a good
Couldn't
enough
give him Ochai?
shooter.
Even a Columbia guy and
Yeah, I'll give you Ochai.
there you
Yeah.
go.
Yeah, couldn't give him. Give him
I'll give
Ochai.
you
Give him a
Ochai.
3-and-D guy.
Yeah.
You know, not Christian Brown. He's just a D and play free guy.
Yeah, there you go.
You know,
Ooh, whoa,
not necessarily a shooter.
whoa.
He is. He plays free. He's a free flowing player. Trash talker. I
He's,
like Christian Brown for.
what did Eric Bieniemy call Mahomes? Competitive.
He's a competitive prick.
There you go.
And that is exactly what Christian Brown is. Yeah,
Yes,
I think
in
so. Like I'm
spades.
with Dylan. I am not a well-traveled, having a refined palate on.
I would say
exotic
mussels.
food.
Then. I mean mussels.
Yeah.
probably.
Gross.
Yeah, I've eaten some mussels.
I'm with you.
But I think octopus, and that's only because I was here in Tahoe with Chad. I would never actually order.
And I respect
octopus.
that. The fact that you,
Yeah.
hey, I'll try it. Why not?
I tried it, yeah,
Yeah, you
and
can say you
I
tried
was
it.
chewing it, and I'm
It
telling
was
you, I
awful.
psyched myself out. I psyched myself out.
Okay,
if I would not have known it was octopus, if it would have been like a blind taste test, okay, close your eyes, see what you're eating. One, I wouldn't have done that because I'm not that brave. Two, had I been brave enough to do that, I don't know what it would have tasted like and what the experience would have been like if I didn't already in my mind know I was eating octopus and was reluctant to begin with.
If you
So there you
ever do a pig roast, like a
Okay.
legit pig roast, get your hand inside the cheek of a pig. You get the jowl meat out.
Which cheek?
Left or right? Oh, by the mouth.
Okay.
The mouth cheek.
Just making sure. I'm just making sure which cheek we're talking about, man.
Yeah, don't put your fingers in the other cheek.
Okay, great.
You want to get the mouth cheek. And
Okay.
those that jowl
Stop
meat
while you're ahead.
is just electric, man. You put it's very, very good.
So your hand is sort of like doing a DNA test of the
Correct.
pig.
You're doing a DNA test of the pig, and you kind of scrape it out there. Ooh,
Right.
delicious.
Good to know. Good to know. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back and wrap up this Alex Zumwalt conversation on the other side of the break. More's up next. All right, men, if you're out there and you happen to be suffering from erectile dysfunction, Heartland Men's Health has treatments that can. wearing the pullover, the nice little quarter zip I've got, I think it's time to take that off. I think it's time to, like you finishing those oysters at the Gentleman's Club in Philly, I think it's time to take off a layer.
Hey, take it off, baby. Take it off, Jason. Tarps off.
I
Come
think
on, get a nice bronze on.
No chance. Well, Sterling, we're actually on the other side of the driving range this year.
Oh,
So,
nice. Well,
yes,
we don't have
yes.
Derek
So,
Carr,
like-
so no Derek Carr's not shanking irons into your into our booth this year.
No, he is not, although the shoulder injury, it's interesting.
Maybe
but
we should have known all
he'll
along.
still be out here.
We should have known. Derek Carr, was that a precursor to your shoulder
Right.
injury?
Was that already injured before that happened with the in the season there? So no, hopefully get a chance to talk to Derek Carr, because there were some things in that conversation last year that went unsaid, and they went unsaid because we lost power in the middle of that conversation.
Well, they went said, but they went off the off record. It was off record.
Yeah, how cool was he last year? And I think we told this story, but how cool was Derek Carr last year that we have an interview with him? We have about 10 minutes in this interview, and he was sitting there chilling with us. And, we have so much more to talk about with him, and the power goes out, and we can't get the interview going. And he sat there for, another 20 minutes waiting for us to figure out the power, and then also just shooting the breeze with him?
Easy. I mean,
that was awesome.
My favorite thing he said was how he wanted to take his kid to a Chiefs game at Arrowhead, and he's like, "I know I'm going to get booed relentlessly, but I respect the
I'm
hell
gonna
out
ask
of
him about that.
But I respect the hell out of Chiefs fans out of Arrowhead and just the history and legacy." And I've always had just an immense amount of respect for Derek Carr.
Yeah.
I mean, it's one of those guys that he's on a team that you hate, but yet you respect the guy. He's a very easy guy, and I was glad when he went to New Orleans because now I can root for the guy. Issue was the injury obviously happened, and we didn't get quite to see the Derek Carr success in New Orleans. But yeah, he just seemed like a very, very great human being.
Yeah, and you can see on the live stream when I'm talking and when Dylan has the camera on me, you can see me sort of hiding from the sun on this side because on the other side the sun was to our back, and so we were fine in the morning. In fact, it made it colder a little bit longer, but now the sun right in our face, and so we've got all these things covered up. I'm sort of in a corner. They put baby in a corner, and typically nobody does that, but I think I put myself in the corner.
Jason Baby
here.
Anderson.
That's right. James Anderson, also known as Baby. So, yeah, I have no idea if that text that we gave out right before the end of that hour was true or not, but we don't even need to address it. We're all just going to assume that it's true, that took place. Before we play the Mark Donovan
Well, it wasn't
clips,
oysters, but yeah.
that makes sense. Before we play the Mark Donovan clips, by the way, Filter just kicked in from me, so I appreciate that. Everybody else at home does as well. Text comes in, 913-912-4810 says, you should take into account who they are playing. Will they do this against the Tigers, Blue Jays, Mets, etc.? 100%. Absolutely. Now, I will grant you that argument that I totally agree you should take into account who they are playing because these are lesser opponents. But part of the frustration in June was the way they played against the A's and the White Sox. So at least there are incremental improvements from when it was kind of embarrassing, to go 2-4 against the White Sox and A's combined. Like that's unacceptable for a team that's trying to make the playoffs, back-to-back years, which is making the playoffs back-to-back years. Has anybody ever done that?
But Jason, I will also say this, though.
Say it.
The Pirates pitching staff is still pretty damn solid. Yeah, it wasn't Skeens.
Luckily, they don't see Skeens.
But
I would like to see Skeens, but I'm not in town to see that, so I can't go to the game to see Skeens. So I don't want to see Skeens. You know what I mean?
Andrew Heaney is more like Lorenzen, so I'll grant you that. But tonight's a really good test because Mitch Keller is a very good pitcher. Don't let that record fool you of 3-10, 3.6 ERA. He's a very good pitcher, kind of in the ilk of a Michael Wacha almost. So again, while yes, the Pirates' offense is very stagnant, maybe the only offense that's about as bad as the Royals, their pitching staff is pretty damn solid. So scoring 9 runs, it was off of Andrew Heaney, but I think tonight's a great test against Mitch Keller.
Yeah, and I believe Mitch Keller – well, nope, I'm wrong. I was thinking Mitch Keller already had over 100 strikeouts, but that is definitely wrong.
He's a contact pitcher.
So I was going to say, I was like, isn't he having like a – but I'm clearly thinking of somebody else that has more strikeouts than innings pitched.
No, he's more in the Lugo
so far.
kind of
he's
ilk.
Yeah, he's kind of a Brad Keller. rather than
the good year of Brad Keller. By
yeah.
the way, the good year of Brad Keller.
Yeah, that's right. Which, unfortunately, the Royals' offense has been Helen Keller so often this year. That's been an issue for them. So, there you go. Look at this guy, huh? Look at that guy. Another year. Larry the Cable Guy's guy, one of our favorites out
he's
there.
awesome.
What's up, brother? Good to see you, man. Good to see you, brother. Absolutely, man. Yeah, we'll be here all week, dude. We'll be here all week, man. No, we're absolutely on the air. We are absolutely on the air. Are you kidding me? What else are we going to do? Will we talk Royals offense? You know what I mean? We can talk Nebraska football. We can talk that, We'll get Larry to talk some – we'll talk some Matt Rule with Larry. We'll talk some Matt Rule with Larry. You damn right we will. Let's see here. Adrian. All right, 913-912-4810 is the text line. Let's hear from Mark Donovan. How about that? Let's hear from Chiefs president Mark Donovan. He had his conversation yesterday with the media about the Chiefs renovating Arrowhead, moving to Kansas, what it's going to be. Let's play clip number 1 here from Mark Donovan as Todd Lebo was out there with the assembled media. And here he is talking about the decision on the projects, renovating Arrowhead, moving to Kansas. Here's Mark Donovan.
Just to be consistent, we've said all along that we're going to do the proper due diligence to figure out what is the best decision for our fans, for this franchise, for our organization, for the future. And I think that the decision between new and renovate is part of the detail of the deals. And as I said, we're making great progress on both sides. They're different deals. And once we have all the details, which is the phase we're in right now, it's literally details, final definitions, exactly that we're all on the same page. And then we'll take that information and we'll make the decision.
So most people think like a new stadium obviously costs more than renovating, right? But there's a higher percentage of the money when people look at the project in Kansas than there is in Missouri, and there still could possibly be a vote in Missouri. Generally speaking, what's the difference on dollars, not knowing what cost overruns or whatever would have to be from the Chiefs to go new or to renovate? Is it more money out of the Chiefs' pocket to make a new stadium, even though Kansas would like to pay 70% of it? Or what? How do those kind of flesh out?
Yeah, I would say this. I mean, clearly a renovation is going to be $1 billion plus, and a new dome stadium is going to be $2-3 billion. So, I mean, just facts there. And then until we have all the details, I can't really answer the second part of that question. But it will take, in either case, it will take a significant investment by the Hunt family, and building on the significant investment that we've already made.
That's going to be the interesting part to me is, we keep hearing that, Kansas is going to cover 70% of the cost. And Missouri, it's up to 50% of the cost. Now, up to 50%, but part of that Show Me Sports Investment Act calls for a sufficient local investment, sufficient local public investment as well. Now, sufficient is a pretty vague term. So who's going to be the one that's going to be judging what is and is not, quote unquote, sufficient inclusion for whether that be Jackson County or Kansas City or Clay County for the Royals? Sufficient is what it calls for. But in terms of the money that they would have to put in, the Chiefs, 70% of $3 billion, and I know that Mark Donovan said $2 or $3 billion for a dome. Let me just go on record, Sterling, and say if they're going to build a dome, I don't want them to build a $2 billion dome. The next 40, 50 years of building a brand new the next 40, 50 years of building a brand new dome, I don't want you to cut corners this go around because it's going to cost you more
probably. It'll probably be round, so yeah.
Well, then you're going to have to cut the corners.
Yeah.
It's a great point. It's a great point. Can you make a cornered dome? That's what everybody's been wondering. Can you square that circle? And I don't know if you can or not. But back to the actual conversation of this. In the 20 years from now, if you're going to have to do some renovations because you cut corners and cut costs now, it's going to be more expensive to try to make up for that. I'm not saying it has to be $5 billion, okay? You don't have to go Jerry World on it. But today's day and age, the price of doing business is not, in my estimation, building a dome for $2 billion. I think you're probably going to have to, if you want to do all the things that the Chiefs have talked about, and also, by the way, if we're going to include the practice facility project as well, it's probably going to be about $3 billion. Even if you want to say 2.5 for the dome and $500 million for practice facility, the offices, the space, the area, again, for the professional flag football team that Mark Donovan wants, if they were to go over there. But we also know $1.15 billion is the cost of the renovations as of the most recent projections that was given to the Missouri legislature while they were voting on the Show Me Sports Investment Act. But if you simply do the math, even if they get to 70% of the $3 billion to cover the star bonds, and the Chiefs don't put in a dollar to help get to the 70%, which I think is also a possibility, because you have to have investments to get those bonds to get to the 70%. Who's to say that the Chiefs' contribution won't be in buying star bonds? Right. Well, the Chiefs have invested, $500 million. Yes, in the star bonds, which they're going to recoup, based on their own performance in that area. But you're looking at, if they don't put a dime into the star bonds and it gets to 70%, you're looking at the rest being about $900 million that they may have to put in out of their pocket. Whereas 50% of $1.15 billion, and even if, let's just round up to 1.5. Let's say they add more bells and whistles to the renovation. Let's say it's $1.5 billion. Well, 50%, you're looking at $750 million. At that point, the local contribution has to be sufficient. Let's call it 20% is sufficient, which you're looking at $300 million, which means to cover the rest, the Chiefs would need to put in about $450 million to cover the renovations, which is roughly what they were going to put in anyway. Last April, was it $300 million that they were talking about putting in? So now, if they're going to put in, $450 for what could be maybe a better renovation project, so there's still going to be, a substantial amount of investment from the Chiefs, whether it's $450 or maybe $900 million. They're still going to have to personally invest some money. People will certainly have their opinions as to whether or not they should invest the entire amount. Whatever, I get it. That's fine. Pro-tax, all of that stuff. But there's going to have to be a substantial investment. My question, Sterling, is on the Kansas side, if the star bonds and those buying the star bonds only gets to like $1.5 billion and only covers 50%, are the Chiefs then going to throw their contribution and say, oh, we're putting in $600 million, and that's just to get the star bonds to 70%? Then what? Then who covers the last 30%?
Yeah, that's the interesting conversation. That's the hard part. I don't foresee personally, I guess, the star bonds. I don't see them having issues selling those. I feel like sports are just such a solid ROI investment, traditionally speaking, of course, that I personally don't see it being an issue. But you're correct. If it is an issue, then where do they go from there? I guess for me, when you look around and you see the valuations of all these teams skyrocket year after year, right when you think they cannot get any higher, they somehow do. And I'm not just talking about L.A. and New York. I'm talking about even the middle markets, small markets too, especially football, man. I just – Royals may be a little different. I could see that being more of an issue. But for the Chiefs, I just can't foresee that happening. And maybe I'm naive here. Maybe I just don't know the behind the scenes and the monetary numbers. And yes, that is a ridiculously large number. I just think that they'll find a way to get to hit whatever they need. But you bring up a good point, Jason. If they don't, what happens? Do they back out? What are the repercussions?
Are they confident in would they be confident in going and asking Wyandotte taxpayers for an added tax, a sales tax or something? Would they be confident saying, well, to get this thing over the finish line, we're going to need to put this to a vote? That star bonds, the beauty is that you don't have to go to a vote. But if this is the project they ultimately decide is what is best for them, then maybe it turns out that, hey, we need $300 million, we need $400 million over the course of that. And I would understand if people replied and said, okay, Hunt family, go ahead and go ahead. You need $300 million, go get it. Go invest it yourself, because you're the ones that are going to be, playing in this beautiful brand new dome, and and certainly it helps the city, but the valuation of the Chiefs. Let's not make a mistake here. When people talk about building for the billionaires and all of that stuff, it's not liquid. You don't build the stadium and they get to own it. It's owned by the county or taxpayers or whatever, whatever entity that would own that. But the value comes in what the franchise is then worth. Like the Miami Marlins I can't remember who their owner was a number of years ago that got them to build a brand new stadium and promised that he wasn't going to sell the team if they built him a brand new stadium. And they built him a brand new stadium, and the valuation of the club went up like $1.5 billion, and then he sold.
Yeah.
And just took all of that, profit. That's where it comes. That's building the stadium for a billionaire, because then that guy saw the profit immediately. The Chiefs' evaluation, the franchise number will go up, what it's worth, but I don't know that they're planning on selling anytime soon. Now, what it could be, though, Sterling, is if the valuation of the franchise increases based on building a new dome, if they were to go into the private investment purchasing a specific amount of the Chiefs, then they could become liquid by selling 5% or 6%, because 6% of a $5 billion valuation is better than 6% of a $3 billion valuation if you've got a brand new dome, just from that standpoint. That, yes, then they would be able to get more money from that standpoint by selling off a percentage. But that could also then, they're selling off that percentage because they need to cover the cost of what the overrun is for that stadium.
Well, if you got more liquid in that regards, too, that, again, this is now bringing it back to the on-field perspective here, which is now almost pennies on the dollar. But would that allow the Hunts to be a little more liquid when it comes to some of the contracts that the Eagles have been handing out, or other teams around the NFL? Could they start doing more of the the void years at the very end? Could you start potentially doing some of those intricate contract negotiation aspect for the Chiefs? Right now, I think were they 29th in void years, something along those lines.
Yeah,
and it was
pretty low.
And it was like the Eagles won. I think it was the 49ers 2. And then you have the Bills and the Ravens around 8 to 12 range. I'm just trying to think out loud and trying to bring this into a on-field perspective. Maybe it's stuff that maybe the fans care more about. If they're able to become more liquid in that regard, could they potentially, and would the Hunt family and Clark be more apt to do things along those lines?
Yeah, I'm with you. Let's take a time out. We'll come back, and we'll get into some other things that Mark Donovan talked about. That being the local discussions. We talked about the sufficient local contribution, which is part of the Show Me Sports Investment Act. If you want to get that 50% of the state's money, 50% to cover the cost from the state, there has to be that local sufficient inclusion. Also, he was asked by Matt Derrick, great question about the governor's office interest in the Royals. And maybe that's why Mark Donovan and the Chiefs didn't get an answer for 6 weeks, and also what the time frame for the decision is. We'll get into all of that coming up next right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB, hanging out in Lake Tahoe, the American Century Championship, a fantastic Kansas City company in American Century, and our sponsors here for our shows over the next 4 days, today and the next 3, brought to you by Bobsite Auto Group, Zero Res, Window Nation, and GAN Asphalt and Concrete. More Zone next. again, this is about the local discussions. We had mentioned that, that 50% from the state, which calls for the sufficient local investment. Mark Donovan was asked about those discussions and how they're progressing on the local front from Jackson County and Kansas City and things like that.
Yeah, so I would say this. We are in active discussions with the Jackson County Legislature. We've had ongoing discussions with them to try to figure out how they play a part in this. What Governor Kehoe did and that's the feedback we've gotten from the legislature, as well as the state. So I believe that's probably the most likely path.
There's potentially 2 windows for that. I mean, is November something you guys would consider at all? Is that something that you think would be too quick?
Yeah, your 2 windows are November and April. I think given the timeline, it'd be difficult to hit the November date at this point, so you're looking more and more in April.
And I think that would make sense, that November would be difficult to get it on the ballot right now because, again, you'd have to figure out if you are going to do the renovation or head over to Kansas. And when asked about the recall vote, if people did not hear or not aware, the Jackson County Legislature voted 9-0 to establish a special election to recall Frank White. That is August 26th of 2025. So it is next month that will happen. That received the reason they had the meeting to vote. The reason they received almost 40 vote was because they received almost 43,000 signatures asking for a special vote. Now the vote is simply, are you going to recall Frank White? Now the vote is simply, are you going to recall him, or are you going to maintain with where you're at? It does not mean that okay, now it's on the ballot, it's going to be recalled. It just goes back to the ballot people to vote. And if they are going to maintain him or not. Donovan, and he said, and that question there from Sal to Mark Donovan, and he said, we're not involved in that. We're not doing anything with that. Whoever we're negotiating with, we're negotiating with. So if it's Frank White, somebody else, that's who we're going to be negotiating with, and we'll find out on August 26th if it's going to be Frank White or not. I do think it is rather foolish on a side note. I think it's rather foolish for Frank White to have the comments that he had about this being retribution because of the stadium. As he said in his statement, this isn't about one vote or one official. It's about whether we respect the rule of law and the taxpayers we serve. If the law doesn't apply when it's inconvenient, then it doesn't really apply at all. He was talking about the recall that he's being punished because he stood up for taxpayers and he said no to a bad deal, and that's why he's being punished. I think is very foolish and short-sighted because the reason they voted 9-9 there's a probably good portion, if not all of them. They're like, I don't care about some damn stadium. I care about the fact that I can't pay the property taxes on my home because somehow it doubled in price. Somehow it doubled in the value over the last year. Property taxes doubling. I mean, that's absurd, because then you go to escrow and all these other things that go into it. Like it's to me, it's foolish. And it's short-sighted for Frank White just to blame the stadium as to why 43,000 people signed this petition to have this special recall election.
Yeah, I would 100% agree with you.
That's a total sidebar, obviously, than what the Chiefs are going through and the Royals are going through. But we'll see if they are even going to be negotiating with Frank White. But, yes, those local discussions have to take place. And as he said, the timeline is probably more in August than it is November. So that is something to keep in mind. We know that the Star bonds have been extended for a year, while the arbitrary deadline that we had Ty Masterson on last week, the arbitrary deadline given of January 1st of 2026. June 30th, 2026 is the official one, but their arbitrary one that they created is January 1st. Matt Derrick asked Mark Donovan about the governor's office and the report, and Ty Masterson telling us that the reason of the slow playing of that was his understanding and saying by, the comments of the governor's office that they are more interested in having the Royals rather than the Chiefs, and that's the negotiations they've been going through, so they put the Chiefs on the back burner. That's why the Chiefs did not get a response in 6 weeks to the most recent proposal. Matt Derrick asked Mark Donovan about that and the governor's interest from Ty Masterson, saying that it's more involved with the Royals.
Yeah, number one, I respect and appreciate the process because we're going through it too. So I respect that the Royals are going through a similar process. Number two, I don't think I'd comment on what Governor Kelly is thinking or not thinking, or what the folks in Topeka are thinking in terms of the two options. The good thing about the Kansas opportunity is that you're sort of justifying your own. So we can justify our project. The Royals potentially could justify their project. They're not really related. So we feel like it really has no impact on us.
Sterling, was the last time you justified your own? It's been a while, hasn't it?
It's been a while.
You haven't had to justify your own in a while.
I haven't had to justify my own.
Maybe get on it.
The horse, though. Maybe the horse justify. I don't know.
You know what? Triple Crown winner.
There we go.
That's what that is. It's a Triple Crown winner, 2017. I don't know.
Come on, horse guy. Thought you were an equestrian.
Yeah, horse's ass. That's what I am. Horse's ass. But yeah, I mean, it's as he said. Like, the beautiful part about the Kansas Star bonds is that, hey, we can justify our own project because we have to create the sales tax and revenue from that project. So in order to get the money for said project, we got to be able to draw people there so we can justify our particular project, and the Royals have to do the same thing. So we'll find out. We'll see what happens with that. And, the governor's office can be more interested in the Royals, but if the Royals choose to stay in Missouri, I don't think they would turn their nose up at the Chiefs moving over to Kansas. They finished up with talking about the timeline, deadline, but sort of phrased it as the time frame for this decision. What is that?
Yeah, I mean, you need to get this thing figured out relatively quickly here. And the reason for that is, if you think about the two different projects, you've got to phase out a renovation over 3 or 4 years while playing football in the same building you're renovating, which just takes time. And you need to prep for it. You need to get we're talking about the overall deal. Once you get that done, then you got to put all the other pieces of the actual project together. We've obviously done some of those steps in preparation on both sides and both options, but they take time. On the new build, you get the benefit of you could go sooner because you don't have the conflict of playing football, but you also have a much bigger project, so that just takes time. I think we're nearing the window here where we're going to have to make a decision one way or the other. To Sam's point earlier, if you're talking about renovation, you have to wait till you get through that April vote to make sure you have what you need. If you're talking new build, then you may not have to wait that long, but we'll see how it plays out.
So what's the next thing you need to know before you Is it Jackson County? Is it what do you need to know?
Yeah, so we need to know a lot, but I would say this. We are so far down the line in both sides that now it's the details. Now it's literally getting down to the final points and making sure that everybody's in agreement on what we need to do and that we have all the pieces lined up. Because what our job is to go to the Hunt family and suggest, here are your two options. They both make sense. Let's make the decision that's best for our fans and our organization.
I know Luke said last one, but let's say you go renovation and you can't get a timeline to get on the ballot in November and you do it in April and it doesn't pass. Then what?
Yeah, that'd be a tough situation for everybody involved.
Yeah, I'd say so. That'd be a difficult situation because it's one thing to have it in 2025, not pass the vote, and then reopen Kansas to then fast forwarding to April. And if they decide that renovating Arrowhead is the best path forward, and as he said, we get the details and everything lined up. That's the time frame. The time frame is to get all of these things figured out on the Kansas side and the Missouri side, get all of the details figured out, all of the specifics, if it goes to a vote or not, Kansas, what their projections are probably from the star bonds and what they could do and what the sales tax and revenue would recoup. And then, as he said, get everything lined up on both sides and then approach Lamar Hunt, the Hunt family, to figure out, are they going to stay in Missouri and renovate Arrowhead? Or are they going to go build brand new in Kansas? But that question from Todd is a fascinating one because we know the Star Bonds has the deadline of June 30th, 2026. But the arbitrary deadline set up by Ty Masterson and the LCC that it is January 1st, 2026. If they decide that they are going to renovate and they say thanks but no thanks to Kansas, and they go to the voters in April, and the voters turn them down again, are they able to go back to Kansas and say, Star Bonds technically have not expired yet. We want to do that deal. Or has Kansas told them as of January 1st, I know that the Star Bonds haven't expired, but we're moving on. You have chosen Missouri, we're moving on. I don't think, I would, here's what if that happened, I think Kansas would still be open to say, all right, let's do the project over here. You know what the project is over here, let's get it done. Because that April vote, when people were voting to, quote, save Kaufman, and we talked about how foolish that was, you weren't voting to save Kaufman. The Royals are not playing at Kaufman after their lease is up. You're not saving Kaufman. You're just changing, you're just making the timeline a little bit, more stressful on where they're going to move to. You're just changing the location of where they're going to move to. You're not saving Kauffman Stadium. They're not playing in Kaufman once the lease expires. Packaged as Save Arrowhead. Because that would be Arrowhead, or then they are moving to Kansas, and the Star. But if they turn you down again, I don't think Kansas is going to go, nope, too bad. Go stick it. Yeah. We don't care. We're taking our ball and we're going home. So nobody can play it in Kansas now. Nobody can. I think they would still be open to that if they have both, because as Mark Donovan said there, Sterling, both deals, they would have to have everything lined up, the minutia, the details, everything, before they approached the Hunts to say, here's everything on both sides. Here's the decision. Which way do we want to go? Because if that's the case, then, Sterling, and it does get voted down in April, they would still have all of those details lined up on the Kansas side if they then had to go to that. That would specifically be a Save Arrowhead vote, though, next April.
Yeah, 100% agree. And if you are Kansas,
You're not coming here now. No. But I would, if I were Kansas, try and put something, a clause in and say, hey, if that's the case, the Star Bonds are covering less than what you originally thought it was going to. You would have to do something.
Interesting point.
I mean, I don't know how you do it. I'm not a lawyer, shockingly enough. Not many radio hosts are.
You went to lawyer school, though.
I went to lawyer school for a little bit.
You were a big fan of Law and Order.
Filibuster. No, but
I object.
I do think that you would have to put some clause in there that would allude to, hey, that's fine, we'll be here, but the longer you wait, the less we are going to cover. Because I do think that'd be fair. And if you're Kansas, you don't want to be used as a strictly pawn in the Chiefs' decision here.
No, you want to be the queen in the game of chess.
Hey, queen's the best. Yes, queen.
Right,
well,
right.
Yeah.
I mean, in checkers, you want to get kinged. King me in checkers, right? Which is, boy, killer at checkers. The strategy of checkers over chess, to me, it's just a lot of people play chess. I play checkers. And, that's why I never understand the analogy when people are like, oh, they're playing chess, not checkers. I'm like, well, then they're playing the wrong game.
I'm a Connect Four man myself.
Chutes and ladders. All right, Candyland. Let me tell you about Candyland, okay? All right, Candyland. That's my game. All right, I kill in Candyland.
Well, you got to watch out for the molasses, though. I mean, that'll get you.
Yeah, I mean, well, maybe, yeah. But, I mean, if you get that ice cream cone, that's all the way to the top in Candyland. Or if you get that first blue, and then you get to skip ahead a number of spots because you take that river, around the S-curve there, that's a nice one to start with, too. You know what I mean? But you don't want to land on the loser turns. Those are tough in Candyland, too. So, yeah, that's a rough one there with that. I don't know what we were talking about, but I bet it was a fantastic
We were actually talking about how if you're Kansas, you would probably want to put a clause in there that would allude to.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think it's a good point. So whatever the details are, these are the details before January 1st. These are the details after. You know what I mean? Like, here's your choice. Here's the plan. And then because that would be a way of also presenting it to Lamar Hunt that, hey, this is going to have to go to a vote in April. And if the vote doesn't pass, this is now the deal in Kansas. So the best deal we're going to get in Kansas is right now. If this goes to a vote for some local contribution that they are going to have to a sufficient level to even get the 50% from the state to cover the cost of the renovations, this has to pass this vote. And if it doesn't, kind of SOL, and it's not sports or leisure. You're the real SOL. And what happens then? Well, it's a good point. And if that happens, I do believe the vote would pass. If they choose to renovate, I believe the Chiefs' vote will pass. Because it will be framed as Save Arrowhead Stadium.
Well, no, I agree. I think
because it's the only thing on the board. It's the only thing on the board. Like if you, real quick, Sterling, sorry. But, I mean, if you presented everybody right now and said, okay, we're going to keep this open to Chiefs fans on both sides, Kansas City, just all Chiefs fans everywhere. Like you have to present your credentials that you're a Chiefs fan, first of all, before you vote. I don't know how that would happen. But in this non-reality living fake world we're creating, hypothetical world, right? A different universe, that then you can vote. Do you want to renovate Arrowhead or do you want to build new? And it's like, okay, this is what the majority of all of the fans say. Okay, let's go with that one, right? But, that's not necessarily the case here of whether they would want you to stay at Arrowhead or move to Kansas. Because when the time of the vote would happen, it would be the only option because the Kansas Star bonds you would have already turned down. So then it's Save Arrowhead or who knows what's next? Who knows where they go at that point? So I do think, and you were saying that you would agree, I do think the vote would pass if they decided to renovate.
Yeah, I mean, you'd have to show your Matt Castle jersey, I think, for approval. But no,
you have to know who Sean LaChapelle is before you can vote.
You think it would pass because you're right. It's Save Arrowhead. I guess my concern would be if they know that's their only option, would people then say, no, we're gonna in their delusion say, no, we're going to make Hunt pay for it now. Or we're going to make the Chiefs pay for the entire thing. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's going to be a subsect of saying, oh, well, no, they're not going to Kansas, so now we have the power. No, you don't, because we know how this would end up transpiring and all of the
Well, they'd also be turning down the community benefits agreement that no doubt would come with said tax. That,
agreed.
And Todd Lebo's talked about why do teams need to be on the hook for the community benefits agreement? I get it, but if you're going to get taxpayer dollars, and that's one way of giving back all of that stuff, so you would be turning that down of what the taxpayers and the costs would bring into Jackson County.
Yes.
To go to those lesser served or housing or whatever. But go ahead, continue.
No, it's not the point that I'm making. The point I was making is that I think some people would still believe that, oh, well, now this means that we have them right where we want them, when in reality you would not.
I guess the only other thing I would point out is that first deal and the amount that was going to be raised or continued, however you wanted to view it, I think it's going to be more now. I know it's no longer Chiefs and Royals. It's just strictly Chiefs at that point. Right. I think you would still see that number be raised for a multitude of reasons. But because they are the Chiefs and they are winning, I think they are hard-pressed to have people disagree at this point. That was part of my pushback originally when they said, well, we'll do a different deal with just the Chiefs. Okay, good luck, but that money or that the tax that was originally there, that's the cheapest one you were going to see, at least in my opinion. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's my viewpoint of this.
I wonder how much, too, the teams would like to know what the other one's doing. Like, can you show your cards first? Because if the Chiefs are looking at it and saying, well, the Royals are choosing Jackson County and moving to Washington Square, they're definitely going to need a vote. And if we renovate, we're going to need a separate vote. So that's two different Jackson County ballot measures to have a tax that goes to a stadium for the local teams, as opposed to one that they were connected. Now you have two different ones. You'd wonder if whoever's first to market, might have the advantage there of saying, well, now do we want to have a vote? If you're the Chiefs, all right, do we want to have a vote if the Royals are going to have a vote to build a brand new stadium somewhere where we're just renovating? How much was the vote in April because people hated moving downtown or, quote, saving the K? How much was it the Chiefs renovation was not inspiring at all? How much was it we're not going to be, you're not going to give us an ultimatum. We're not going to be told that we have to do this or else, which I think is just totally false. It's such false bravado of we're not going to be, our feet held to the fire, and you're not going to say either vote for this or we're moving. Because you didn't believe they would move. That's why. You didn't believe they would move cities. If it literally came down to the end where you vote yes or no, the Chiefs or Royals will move to Nashville, and a yes vote keeps them in Kansas City and a no vote moves to Nashville, you're voting yes or you're a freaking idiot. So false bravado of, well, I voted because they're not going to tell me what to do. They're not going to, say vote or else. Yeah, because you don't think they're moving. That's why. So you had the you had the luxury of a fallback plan of I'll vote no just to show them. You don't do that, Mark Donovan. Say you vote no, we'll see what happens. I want to know what the breakdown would be of how many people voted no because of the Royals, how many people voted no because of the Chiefs, because the Chiefs renovation was uninspiring. They did not do a whole lot to inspire optimism and excitement around the project when it was connected to the Royals. Is first to market the best place to be in? The first team to choose Jackson County, is that the best place to be in? Or if the Royals choose Clay County and then the Chiefs say, well, now we can do either and we'll be perfectly fine, and now we can choose Jackson County because it's a completely different vote. Or if the Chiefs choose Jackson County, does that mean the Royals say, kind of Clay County or Hesperia for us? I wonder what the other one would do if sort of showing their cards, because I think it would be tough for two separate ballot measures of some sort of a tax increase or a continuation of the 3/8 cent tax for one of them, because the Truman Sports Complex is the 3/8 cent tax. So I would guess maybe something along those lines would go to the Chiefs and the Kansas City Royals getting a brand new one some way, shape, or form. Would both ballot measures pass, or are you going to take your chance and say, they're already there in Jackson County, we'll go somewhere else? I don't know, because now they're split. They're no longer together, They're no longer going to be, connected, which is what they want. So we'll find out what it is. And I think the Chiefs' renovations, if they're on their own, I think those renderings will be a lot more souped up than what they were the first go-around.
Yeah, agreed.
With them being on their own.
Agreed.
I think there'll be a lot more bells and whistles to that. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. We'll continue rolling. More Zone next. All right, wrapping up this hour, we'll talk with Les Norman. We will break the norm with Les Norman coming up on the other side of the break. Presented by TruckMovers.com and First Federal Bank of Kansas City. We'll talk some Royals with Les Norman. 2 more games to go against the Pittsburgh Pirates in town. Taking on the Kansas City Royals. Seth Lugo on the mound tonight against Mitch Keller. And then a 3-game set against the New York Metropolitans. And that will head us into the All-Star break. Which, by the way, if you did not see, we'll ask Les Norman about this too. The players voting, you know, the fan vote and the player vote. Player vote's part of making the All-Star game, not necessarily starting. But even the player voting, Bobby Witt finished second. Only he finished second to Jeremy Pena. 109 votes fewer than Jeremy Pena received from the players for Bobby Witt. Interesting. Les Norman next. Lake Tahoe American Century Championships, a Kansas City company, great Kansas City company in the American Century. And it is presented by Bobsite Auto Group, Zero Res, Window Nation, and GAN Asphalt and Concrete. Coming up in the next hour from now, we'll talk with Todd Lebo. He is down in Dallas, Frisco, Texas, Jera World with the Big 12 Media Days. And we'll hear from Chris Kleiman, who is addressing the media. We'll hear from K-State players later on today with Soren Petra, who's down there as well with Todd Lebo. That is presented by the Bobsite Auto Group and also Choice Solutions. Let's talk some Royals baseball, some Major League Baseball. Les Norman breaking the norm, presented by TruckMovers.com, First Federal Bank. About some game that they're both sort of entrenched in their stance and going back and forth, and because it didn't end with a ha ha da da da, it ended with an all right whatever, and they both turned away like,
well,
oh wow, this is serious.
They wanted to win. You want to win in baseball,
right?
I mean, we are all competitive.
Was that, when he started playing, he was on Sterling's team. So it was Miles Teller, Sterling, David Wells, and one of Miles Teller's friends. So I think it was the four of you that were on that team. And David Wells' wife, who is, everybody knows her around here, she's actually playing in the scramble today for David Wells. That's how popular she is amongst the celebrities in American Century. She's the one playing with the celebrities today. David Wells is out on the driving range. So it's kind of fun. David Wells starts playing, and she's like, "What are you doing?" She's mad at him, like, "What? No, you are whatever age he is, right?" I think he was like, 41 when he stopped playing in 2007. Do the math. So he's like 58, 59 years old now.
Pushing 60.
Yeah, so she's like, "You're 50-something years old," and then he
62.
gets up and
he's now
62 years old. Quick math, like I said. So he sinks one, and she's like, "Yeah, that's my husband." And they both start getting so into it, and they are so competitive. And what I'm wondering, Les, because I know you play softball, and I hope the hamstring's doing better.
It is.
But you play softball. How do you relieve those competitive sort of emotions that somebody who spent your entire life competing at the highest level, that when you're done playing, how do you find a way to exhaust that sort of competitive urge if you're just out there playing for fun in softball? Or has it just slowly dissipated over the years, that it's gotten less and less of that competitive urge to, like, I got to win at something, or whatever I'm doing, I have to win?
Well, the competitive urge is still there. I have to play a different sport. I play by inches. I mean, by no stretch am I still a good golfer, but again, there's improvement there, and I'm always competing against myself. I mean, every time I go out on a golf course, whether I'm playing with somebody or against somebody, I'm always going to be the worst golfer, either in the foursome or whoever we're competing against. My team has never won a scramble tournament. We got the 8-10 tournament coming up. We've got no shot winning because I'm on the team. So that kind of quells it. But when I'm playing softball, I'm playing with my sons, and they're not. I think my older one's got a little bit of competitive juices. My younger one, not so much. They're good, but they just want to play. And I've got a team full of young guys, maybe 3 or 4 older guys, like around my age, and then the rest of them younger. But again, it's a rec church league, and it's not about that. And so I'm not. Can you imagine me getting out there like
softball
hey,
guy?
Yeah. Oh, hey, softball guy. Because there's a lot of guys that find out, like,
spikes up.
Last week, we played against a team that one of the guys in the team had his girlfriend on the team, and she was playing far right field. You have 4 outfielders, and every time one of our guys hit a ball to right field, they just started screaming at us like we were a-holes. I mean, they were screaming it for 2 hours in 2 games. And I came up. It was the last. There were 2 guys on, and we spread the team if the guy on second scores, and there's nobody out, and the guy kept pitching me outside, and I tried to hook the ball, and so I ended up hitting it to right field, but I hit it over her head. No matter who was playing, it would have gone over their head, and he's screaming a-hole at me. I'm like, he's pitching me outside. What do you want me to do? He's like, well, you're a professional player, former professional. I said, well, not in softball. I don't know what else I'm supposed to do. And so,
well, if you pull it, you're going to drill the pitcher.
Yeah, I don't.
So what
exactly.
does that guy want you to do? Drill him
exactly.
or hit it to right field?
But again, it's just I get a lot of flack when people find out that I played because I'm playing softball and I'm just playing with my kiddos. So I understand that, and people know that. So in this league and playing softball with my boys, I'm not competitive at all. I'm just having fun. I make my outs and my pop-ups like everybody else, and I pitch all the time. So last night I was almost decapitated, which was also very fun because there was a big guy on the other team that smoked it. And after I barely got my hand up in time, he didn't run to first. He conceded. But, so I take my lumps, but I'm not super competitive in that.
Did your sons complain? Hey, why are you hitting it to my dad? It's our girlfriend there. He can't play.
Oh,
He's
gosh,
not good
no.
anymore. Why are you
No.
hitting it to him?
Well,
They
two
did-
reasons
good.
two reasons they don't say that. One is because they know it'll come back to haunt them. Because with my boys, we'll find something else to be competitive, whether it's basketball in the driveway or something like that. I have to stay away from the video games though. But and then they know that Dad can handle himself. They're about their own. I give them their respect to be their own dudes. So we don't need to be in protection mode of each other. We're good.
Can we all agree that the most competitive that any guy or gal will ever be is pool basketball? For some reason, when you play pool basketball, I don't know what happens, but we become.
I'm not sure.
Anytime I've ever played pool basketball, it's like, no, I'm going to.
It was a big shot.
Well, you're like throwing hands. You're elbowing.
You've got the buoyancy and the non-gravity of the water.
That makes it even funnier because you're moving slow in the water.
But
and
you
it's
can
just
dive.
physical.
You can shoot and try to dunk and dive like something you're not going to do on the driveway. So it's a lot more fun.
It's physical. Pool basketball. It might be the most competitive non-sport there ever is.
You just gave somebody out there listening an idea for a new sport on ESPN.
Probably, yeah, you can do that. It's like you combine water polo and like basketball.
ESPN
And
8.
so it'd be
like
the Ocho.
Basketball, polo, water basketball. Let's call it water basketball.
Water ball.
Done. Did it. nailed it. Water ball, even better. It's like when Shohei hits a home run into the fountains. Water ball, It's what happens there. My competitive juices are released during the Prospects baseball games, the 9U and 10U games we play. That's where I get, because it's like we just won our team. I don't get to play. But the competition there is there to a degree, right?
Get your elbow up. Get your elbow up. Let's go.
Yes. You're walking home, son. You come through here. You're walking home, You got to keep the perspective of that, they're still 9 years old. And in fact, we were playing a team, God, it was a couple of weekends ago. We lost both of our pool play games and then, won the state tournament, whatever. Who's counting? But we went 0-2 in pool play. And the second game we were playing, we were just playing terrible. Like, it was just a bad day, Les. You know what I mean?
Yes.
One of those days you show up and your team doesn't have it. They're 9 years old, They didn't have it. Now, they showed up the next 2 days and scored 71 runs in 4 games. But, that's neither here nor there. And we're playing this team, and and the first base coach, it was so funny. He was over by us, and he's an older gentleman. And he's like, the secret to this whole thing? He goes, this not being your first kid. He goes, this is my third one. I'm just here having fun. These are 9-year-olds. Whatever happens, you know. And everybody else is like all into it. And I'm like, that is so true, because this is my first son and my first kid through this whole thing. And boy, it is life or death. Not to where we're getting thrown out of games and yelling at umpires or yelling at other coaches or anything. It's only 9. Hopefully not. But it is like, wow, this, because it's serious for them. But I thought that was a great perspective. The guy was like, the secret, it's not your first kid. This is my third, and whatever.
Yeah, that's good.
Chill. He was totally chill, and like so many others are like, in this tournament, like the coaches are, upset and mad. And I'm that third base coach, I get upset and mad too from time to time. But you got to keep the perspective. That's my competitiveness. That's where mine is. And I was talking to my wife because we didn't have a tournament this last weekend, and I'm looking at some of the other teams that we played that are playing like in St. Louis, or like Anthony Sherman's team went down to Mississippi this last weekend and played. And I'm like, man, I know we've played like 3 straight weekends in tournaments, but I want to be playing right now. Like, I want to be playing in a tournament right now. It's so much fun. Like, that's our life, and I absolutely love it. It's the best, and that's where it all comes from. And if he doesn't win, they walk home. And he knows that. You know what I mean? So
there will be a day.
Either get a hit or walk home.
There'll be a day where you miss them being that little and miss watching them play. But when they're older, like in their 20s, fun and succeed because they've worked so hard, and you want to see them succeed and not strike out and be sad. It's not the wins and losses you'll miss at all. You won't even remember 99% of those. But it'll – just watching your kid be little will be balanced out with the, Saturday mornings I don't have to get up at 6 o'clock for an 8 a.m. game, and on the final day on Sunday where you have to play 4 games to get to the final. Those, you won't miss those, but right now soak every ounce of it up.
Yeah, we got to beat the warm-ups start at 7 o'clock, and we're playing 45 minutes up north against a team we just played in league play on Tuesday.
Right.
5 minutes from our house. We just played them on Tuesday, 5 minutes, and now we're driving 45 minutes to play the same team, and we got to be there by 7.
Yeah. And all the parents are saying the same thing in the stands. I can't believe we came all the way up here this early in the morning to play against a team that we play every week.
Well, might as well win if we're here. Come on, guys, play well. I think my proudest moment of my son last weekend, or the weekend before, I guess, was he was on the mound pitching, and there was a slow roller to an infielder, and waited on it, and then came up to throw too quickly, and the ball got away from him, and he went over there and he gave the second baseman a high five. And because I had talked to him about that before. I'm like, dude, getting down, they know they made a mistake. Do you want your teammates mad at you if you make a mistake? You feel as bad as anybody. But I bet you feel good if somebody comes up and was like, it's all good, let's get the next one, right?
Negative reinforcement.
So that was the proudest I was of
Jason.
him.
Negative reinforcement.
That's what I give to him. And I told him, if you don't do that, then you're going to hear it from me. No, that's not the case. Les Norman is there. Hey, Les, is this what it was maybe like with the kids and the team you were playing with the guy's girlfriend there in right field? Go ahead, Dylan.
Now remember, we're here to impress the girlfriends of guys we barely know. So when you get the ball, throw it like a cannon. You must throw your arm out on every play.
Is that it?
I wasn't like that on our team. I could care less who's out there playing what. Just have fun, and I mean, and the funny thing is about that situation, one of our guys hit a line drive into right center, and she's left-handed, and she took like 3 steps to her right on a sprint and just caught a line drive. It was awesome.
Nice.
And she could,
what are they complaining about?
And she's a left-handed hitter and could fly down the line. I mean, she was a gifted athlete. And, when he said he was joking, it's one thing to say you're joking, but when their whole team is calling your whole team a-holes for 2 straight hours, and then the end of the second game, like, I was just joking. Gosh, take a joke. I'm like, really? For 120 minutes, you're joking. Yeah. All right, sure, no problem. So it's going back to that point, it's not a competitive thing for me, but you get that.
Yeah, unfortunate there. Les Norman is our guest. Let's talk about Noah Cameron.
Yeah,
and what we saw last night. He goes 7 innings for the first time in his career, career high in number of pitches. But what we've talked about before, Les, is pitch count has varying degrees of the pitch count. Like if you've thrown 80 pitches and you're pitching out of trouble the entire game, it's a different 80 pitches than cruising except for a 2-run shot by Tommy Pham. Like, they didn't score 2 runs in the inning by 2 walks, a couple of singles, a hit by pitch, working out of a jam, bases loaded, nobody out, trying to make perfect pitches. It was a dink and a doink, right? Right? Isn't that what it's called? And a bloop and a blast. Jeez, Louise.
There you go.
It was a bloop and a blast. I figured it out eventually. A willy, a nilly, a dink and a doink, a bloop and a blast. So he has the career high in number of pitches. But what are we seeing from Noah Cameron? Look, the book is out on him. Anything he does now, Les, maybe it's that guys haven't seen him in person. Andrew McCutchen was talking about that, or Rex was talking about that with Andrew McCutchen. But are we seeing a guy that maybe what we see from this point forward is going to be closer to who he realistically will be in his career rather than bursting on the scene his first 5 or
That's what hitters want, that pitch up there so they can get it extended. But if you're spotting it like all four corners, it's a great pitch to have. But, I relied on the two-seamer as well because you get a little more movement on it. So if I'm coming in tight on a righty, it's a four-seamer, and I can go up and down the ladder on it, which makes it a really good pitch because what do hitters want to do in fastball counts? They want to extend. They can't extend when you're inside, but you can throw it in for a strike, and if they hit it, they're going to hit it foul.
Les Norman played for the Royals in the 90s. Les, what was the book on David Wells as a right-handed hitter? Don't let him get inside on that. Pray? What was the book for you, Les?
Burn the book because it doesn't work. I mean, watching David Wells pitch was like striking out from the dugout, which is where I was most of the times he pitched anyway. I didn't get a chance to get out there. But, I mean, yeah, just watching him do his thing. I mean, David hid the ball well. Obviously, he was a master of how to pitch guys.
Then that's where the brain comes on, like you said, and you don't want it. You want them to run out of bat. So if you could throw every pitch, however many you had for a strike, in any given count, then that's successful because then you're going to get in that hitter's head because he's just going to go, what the hell, But the report on me that I heard years later was, get ready because this guy throws strikes and you're probably going to get one pitch to hit. And that at bat, and if I give you two, then you got lucky, and then it wasn't good for me. But that's kind of what I did. I knew the hitters. You know who you can get you out, who gives you problems, then you pitch accordingly. But you know what? You got to repeat your mechanics. And I was a mechanical guy. That's why I threw strikes. These guys nowadays are 100, 105. They're all over the damn place. They can't pitch, and they're always behind an account. And you can hit that 105 nowadays. These guys have gotten so good, but they're robots for this thing now with the strike zone and how they have it now. It's like today. I don't know if I would. I'd be a miserable pitcher out there because I'm going to pitch to my strengths. I'm not going to pitch to the analytics. But if a guy's feeling comfortable in there, he's going to get his butt. He's going to be on his back. But they don't do it nowadays. So it's kind of. It's kind of a shame that you say it. You're not trying to go out there and hit anybody. You're just going out and let them know, hey, I'm out here, and be ready.
Yeah.
Could you tell when you were inside a hitter's head that he was guessing, he was thinking?
Oh, yeah. Canseco was the greatest because I'd throw him fastball up in the zone and then a little bit higher, and I'd throw the deuce, and he could. And after, I don't know, a few years, he comes and he goes, dang, Boomer. He goes, I can't hit your curveball. I go, man, I really appreciate that. Thank you. You big dummy.
You guys know how Jose Canseco always, like, in between pitches or in at bat, he would always stretch his legs, pull his legs up and all that, and like stretch his back. Yeah. He's stretching his back because he always blew out trying to face David Wells because he always swung and missed at the high stuff and then reached for the low stuff. So yeah,
you get ahead of him with pitches up because he's ready to swing. And that's what most power hitters do. They chase up because it looks really good, And so I think if Jose was playing in this day, he'd have a field day because everybody's pitching up in the zone, and the ballparks are getting smaller. So, to me, I think he'd have more success with guys pitching down in the zone and, staying away from his extension.
What was your go-to pitch? I got to have one pitch. We hear like, you're in a spot like, hey, best pitch. What do you got right here?
Four-seam fastball was great, but my curveball was even better. But I always pitched accordingly. Now, if I had a scuff on that ball, you're getting up but two seamers, and I'll make that ball move like Maddox does without a scuff. So,
yeah.
But to me, it's being in that situation. You're going to have days where you just suck and you got to grind it out. You're just trying to get a quality starter, at least keep them in there for 5-6 innings. But no matter how bad you are, but you just have to adjust with the hitters because they're always adjusting and getting better. So you just have to pitch to your strengths and find that spot. And once you get in the groove, then it's like, just repeat your mechanics, go out and have fun. Just look at the catcher's glove.
Do you you mentioned the two-seam and sort of let it dance. Is that one to where you, if you've got the scuff or even not, that, I'm just going to throw it over the plate and the movement and the change in velocity is going to do the work for me? Or is that my mechanics, I can repeat that and I understand where to put it and I can make it move a certain way and put it in one of those, 9 spots that I want in the strike zone? Right.
And that's a great question because for me, the scuff, you got bigger, better movement, bigger movement. If you didn't, you just stay on top of the ball. And for me, if I'm throwing my warm-ups and I'm getting maybe 2-3 inches, then I'm starting it right on the black on the outside to a righty. That's where I'm starting it, and then he's going to run out of bat. And if he does, and if you're Ichiro, he's going to foul it all. He had go-go gadget arms. That dude was unbelievable. But, for most hitters, that's what you want to do. You just want to get them enough to get it out on the end because they're going to try to pull it. Here's your ground ball. If it goes through, tip your cap. But you're going to get that ground ball majority of the time. And don't elevate those pitches. Because if you do, those go a long way too. If you don't get it, if it's above the knees, that's going to be tough. But unless they run out of bat, then you're going to be fine.
David Wells is our guest. Year 18, 19, how much different of a pitcher were you from year 1, 2, 3, 4? I asked the question because I was listening to a podcast that Tariq Skubal did, and that's a guy that hits 99, but he pitches changeup first. Right. He pitches off his changeup. And what I brought up to you with the two-seam is that, with the pitch com, he'd say, it'll be like, four-seam low and away or curveball. But changeup is just changeup. And he said, I would just throw it over the plate. I just throw it over the plate, let the movement and the change in velocity do the work for me so I'm not trying to be too fine with the changeup. But that has developed over the last couple of years with him. And so he gets to the big leagues, and he's already a pretty damn good pitcher, right. But now he's pitching changeup first and almost pitching in reverse. How much different of a pitcher were you at the end of your career versus the beginning?
Well, I didn't throw my changeup until when I was a starter. Once I established myself, I had good years early on. I didn't need my changeup, and I had a pretty good changeup, but I wouldn't throw it till the 5th, 6th inning because I didn't need it because I was just getting outs here and there, doing that, and then changing it up later in the game. If I'm struggling early in the game, I would throw them. But in the beginning of my career, I was more of a power pitcher, trying to get strikeouts, trying to do that instead of just, pacing myself, I know I could hit 97. Mm-hmm. That's where I maxed out at. But then I could get, my movement. My curveball was and I had 2 curveballs. I had the hard curveball and then the big 12-6 curveball. So I had 2 different ones to get them on the fit. And then, to me, to be a master of that and throwing for strikes, that helps you out because now you got the hitters thinking and they can't sit dead red. But I never, behind an account, like to throw off-speed pitches unless it was somebody like a Mo Vaughn who I couldn't get out.
Well, he put his elbow over the plate anyway, so
yeah,
he was just ready to get hit. He had a football pads on, right? He was out over the plate.
A lot of guys did, and it kind of sucked. Then they had knee pads too, because then you do that. Because after you get pissed off at a guy, you're going to try to put him out, but you want to hit him in the right spots. You want an elbow, you want a knee, you want something like that. I wasn't a headhunter. I just tried to pitch accordingly, but I relied on my catcher so much. Because hitters move their feet in the box, so I hated to shake, so I would rely on my catcher. If a guy's moving his feet, I trusted him to call the right pitch. And that's how it was, and it worked for me.
Les, did you move your feet much in the box?
No, I tried to.
Or so then, was it more? Was it finesse pitchers?
Yes.
Was it?
Yes.
Was it okay?
Yeah, I would rather.
To try to eliminate your curveball, but then they had such quick bats, and a guy that was really pesky that I hated it because he got in my head was what's his name, Eckstein.
Yeah, David Eckstein.
David Eckstein, yeah, that guy and then he would throw a bunt down on my ass, and just was like he just.
Come
that
on, you're
dude was
lefty.
in
You
my
can
head
get off
more
the
than
mound over
anybody.
there. You're a lefty. You can cover that. You're a lefty. You can cover that ground over there.
I could cover my ground pretty good for a big guy, but for some reason that guy was just so pesky for me.
Yeah.
And I hated it, because I just didn't know what to do, and he would wear you out. He would just foul ball, foul tip, foul, and wear you out. And it was just one of those things where, come on, just throw it, just kind of elevate it so he can, so he can hit a lazy fly ball. Because back when I came up, Wade Boggs, Don Mattingly, they were easy outs because I would just throw them up and away, and they weren't going oppo, not back then.
Wow.
And all hell broke loose, and everybody's going oppo, and they're like, okay, wait a second here, and you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, they're trying to flick it and foul it off, but they're trying to pull it, and they can't catch up to that.
Correct. So, but yeah, you just certain hitters were there, like the Mo Vaughn for me. I couldn't get him out, so I just said, you know what, buddy, I love you, but if there's a guy on base, I'm going to hit you. He goes, well, you're not going to hit me. And I go, do you know me to hit anybody in the head? Because my control was good. I just said, you're a liability on first base anyways. And sure enough, I hit him one day, and he just laughed at me walking down first baseline. The next pitch was a double play, and he comes by the mound. He calls me a SOB. He goes, and I go, I was right? He goes, yeah. Yeah, and he goes, are we going out tonight? And I go, yes, we are. And then he would go in. It was just a good laugh, But to me, you just knew your limitations on for me, hitters, for you, pitchers. So it was, it's one of those things. But to me is, getting command, getting ahead in the count, it was always, that's what I preach to everybody.
I know you got to go, and Les does as well, but real quick, as you're talking about your command and move on, did you ever hit anybody on accident with your command, or if they got hit, that's where you wanted to put it?
Well, I hit a lot of guys on purpose.
But on accident, though.
No, probably. I did. I hit Jamie McFarland. I hit him in the head in Toronto, and I just pitch got away, and I felt so bad because he's out of the game. I'm just like, that devastated me because you could kill somebody. And I believe it was, I don't know, a couple starts later, we're playing Kansas City, and he comes up, he looks at me, and I just kind of gave him the old, here comes the fastball, and he hit a home run. And he came around third. And I just tipped my cap, and I go, we're even. Now I'm going to get you.
Yeah.
But I just felt bad hitting because I didn't hit a whole lot of guys. Mm-hmm. But if you showboated on me, you're getting one really hard. I'm going to try to put you out of the game. Yeah. I'm going to get a wrist, get an elbow, get a knee. I'm going to try to put you out of the game because there's no room. I hated showboaters and
amen
guys
to
that try
that.
to show
Thank
you up.
you.
Yeah. Yes, no doubt.
David, thank you for stopping by. I really
My pleasure.
appreciate it. We love talking to you every year out here, and we'll see if we'll get you playing some baseball beer pong over the next couple of days.
Oh boy,
here, like last
well,
year.
my son's here, so he's really good.
Okay,
he's 6'5", and he played in college a lot. So
he played baseball beer pong in college too, or played baseball in college?
No, beer pong. He was good in his frat and all that, and then over here, we'll play like you get Miles and Oshie and Kachuk and all that.
Yeah.
I'll get my old ass in there and do it. Then
our guy who back here with that when you sat down and he was talking about the foursome, he was out here with us. He was on your team.
Yeah.
Last year. The mustached guy looked like a cut rate Miles Teller. Looked like a great value Miles Teller that was on your team.
That's a great porn stash is basically what it is. But so I got my son in there. He saw Laura. He was just crushing. I'm like, good. I'm gonna watch these guys get drunk and I'm gonna go to bed.
David, thank you, man. Have fun this week.
My pleasure. Good talking with you guys.
Absolutely. There's David Wells joining us, hanging out here at American Century Championship in Lake Tahoe. Les, I know you got to go as well, man. We appreciate hanging out with you as well, and we'll be listening to a break in the norm. What do you got coming on the show, real quick, before we let you go?
Yeah.
.com and First Federal Bank of Kansas City. We will take a timeout and we'll come back and we'll just reminisce about that conversation with Les and David Wells about two pros figuring out the other guy out there on the mound in the chess match that is baseball. That was great stuff. More Zone next. Segment, hanging out with Les Norman, our coverage here at the American Century Championship, presented by Bobside Auto Group, Zero Res, Window Nation, and Gann Asphalt and Concrete. We were going to talk with Les Norman until we had him until 12:40, and David Wells came by and he was like, "Yeah, I can. I got time right now, but then I got these other things I got to do." And I'm like, "Heck yeah, let's have you on with Les Norman. Let's do it and have that conversation." I'll tell you what, in the baseball geek in me, listening to David Wells and Les Norman break down the pitcher-hitter relationship and the adjustments and who's easier to go up against and tougher to go up against. And David Wells would smoke Jose Canseco but had a tougher time with David Eckstein. And Les Norman is like, yeah, give me a Randy Johnson all day. But Jamie Moyer, no, didn't go well against a guy like Jamie Moyer.
Yeah, I found that very, very interesting. Talk about breaking the norm, huh? That was definitely breaking the norm right there. No, I thought that was honestly a very interesting conversation. And again, I do
because also we were talking about Noah Cameron and Chris Bubich. Great. We're not talking about guys that are throwing 101. We're talking about the Royals having two guys maybe a part of this team for long term that are sort of pitching different than what we're seeing the norm be in baseball.
Well, and that's kind of, again, why I think that Chris Bubich is and can be so impactful and helpful for the development of a guy like Noah Cameron, because it's honestly very similar stuff. It's not that overpowering fastball. It's all about locating that four-seamer so then you can have the curve and the slider and the change play off it, because if you're not throwing that four-seamer for strikes or locating it well, those secondary pitches, good luck. Tariq Skubal can get away with it because that change has so much movement, and he throws 100. He throws 99. It's a little different there. So, again, yeah, you might see some clunkers occasionally from a guy like Chris or Noah Cameron, but what I've seen from Noah Cameron so far, I think he's already ahead of where Chris Bubich originally was. Whether that's the pitching coach and development in the minors or not, you got to tip your cap, because it does feel like he's further along than a lot of guys were just even 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah, and then David Wells talking about how bad he felt when he hit McFarland in the head, and when they were in Toronto, and then returning to Kansas City and facing off against McFarland, and gave him a fastball down the middle, and McFarland deposited it into left field, and tip a cap, and hey, my bad about earlier. Now we're even. Now let's go back to playing baseball. I thought that was pretty interesting as to how that took place. Like, the side of baseball that we don't really see or hear about in real time. Like, I bet David Wells didn't meet with the media after it was over and go, no, I gave one to Mike McFarland there over the middle because I hit him earlier in the head. So I just wanted to tell him my bad and, give him one. And he took advantage of it, and now we're good to go. It might have been, he got me on that one.
Yeah, New York media is pretty cool about that kind of stuff. If that was
they would be totally fine with
it,
Yeah, just, he got me on that. What are you going to do? Tip your cap and move on to the next one. But, I'll be ready next time Mike McFarland gets up there in the batter's box. But, I thought that was interesting. Because I brought it because Pedro Martinez said he never hit somebody on accident. He said everybody he hit in his career, he was meaning to hit him. So I think that's, by the way, kind of a badass thing to say.
Imagine, though, you're like, I've done nothing wrong. Why is he hitting me?
Yes, what did I do? Well, you know what? You may have showboated a little bit, so you got one there.
Hey, you should have been
as he said
standing
with
there.
Mo Vaughn, as he said with Mo Vaughn, look, you're going to hang out over the plate like that. I can't get you out. Fine, I'm just going to hit you, and you're going to clog up the base paths anyway. So that was great. We'll take a timeout, come back, continue rolling. More Zone next. have some college football on the docket today, see what's going on there in the Big 12. Brett Yormark's comments earlier today, Chris Kleiman as well. K-State players will be heading there to the Big 12 Media Days this afternoon. We'll hear Soren Petro will be broadcasting his show live there from Dallas, Frisco, Texas, Jarrah World with Avery Johnson and Taylor Portier. Bishop Miege in the house. Cody Stubble-Bean. Cody Stubble-Bean, Des Purnell, and VJ Payne there for K-State. So, as I was saying, Bishop Miege in the house with Taylor Portier. Also, Todd Levo. We'll talk with him coming up next. Dillon. Thank you to David Wells joining us in the previous hour, Les Norman as well, and we'll see who else stops by. But we're actually going to he's not stopping by here. We're going to him, and that is Todd Lebo there in Dallas, the Big 12 Media Days, and Jera World there in Frisco. Todd, how are you today?
Doing great. Day one is not done, but we're rolling along here. It's K-State Day for us here. We got KU tomorrow.
Mm-hmm. Because I was on a different flight than Chad and the boys and Bethany. I got here at 6:30 local time.
What time
so
did
8:30
they get in?
They got in, I think, at like 10:30 local time here, and then I think they went to their hotels at 1 o'clock, or a hotel at 1 o'clock local time here.
Yeah. We beat
so
them.
that was certainly a choice. That was certainly a choice that they made to not then go immediately to bed on the first night. That was a choice that they made.
Yeah, for sure.
I made a different one. I made a more responsible one.
You make the smart choices. You're a good boy. You always are a good boy. Yeah.
That's right. You and Petro then hit the town right when you got to Dallas.
Yeah, we hit the pillow. That's what I did. Hit the pillow, and then I got up and got cleaned up, and we got over here early, made sure our gear all works, and ready to do a big show here today starting at 2 o'clock with Soren. Have a lot of K-State guests for you today. We're also going to have Kathy Nelson on from Kansas City Sports Committee. So I talked to a little bit earlier. Terry Mahajer, who worked for a long time at UMKC, and then at KU for a bit, and then at Arkansas State. He's been the UCF AD for a while. There's so many things to talk about down here with NIL and the house settlement and all that stuff, so it's good to talk to an AD. We're going to do that later as well. So we got a lot of fun stuff coming up from down here at Frisco.
It's still day one, and so it's only been going on for a few hours now in day one, starting with Brett Yormark's comments. But I wonder if maybe a theme is already developing. I know you talked about that there's NIL and the house settlement and stuff like that, but I know Brett Yormark weighing in and saying we want to handle this on the field. The 5+11 is the model that they want to go with, and this is not the NFL, which is sort of taking a shot at the Big Ten and their comments about what the and how to decide a champion. I just wonder if a theme will develop with the coaches of sticking up for the Big 12 and we're not just some secondary conference that these other two big conferences are going to get 4 bids apiece, and we're just relegated to a couple and then figure out how to get there. We want an even playing field, and if you're that good, then why do you feel like you need to weight one side or the other?
Well, there's certainly that is a theme. And the other theme is this, this house settlement is so new. It's whatever. What is it today? What is today? 9th? 8th? We're like 8 days into this thing. So they don't even know how this is going to work yet. We don't know, we talked last year. I remember talking about this at the Big 12 basketball, conference tournament. Guys want to get their deal signed before July 1. So they're grandfathered in because they knew this house settlement was coming. So there's still going to be rosters that may be $20, $30 million. What did people say Ohio State was last year? $30 million? And then are you going to get another $17 million on top of it? Are they going to really get guardrails in on what true NIL is? So that's another topic for sure. The thing that's not really a topic is, hey, what do you think of your schedule? How about your football team? I mean, it's really hard to talk about those things. These coaches, they want to get to whatever their date to start practicing is and start doing what they like to do, because so much of college coaching is different, right? We know that for years. College coaching has been, you have to recruit. That's how you get your players. But it has turned into another prong on that. It's recruiting them once, recruiting them again, and then, coach a football game. Who's going to get there? I mean, there's so much stuff going on with these guys. And so I think it's not the furthest thing from their mind, but like fighting over 5+1 or, all that kind of stuff with these other things going on, their plates are full right now. I don't feel sorry for these guys. They all make a lot of money and all that. But it is harder to do this job now in a lot of ways than it was before. A lot of things are easier about it, trading tape and not having to do all the things that you get to put some film on a truck and drive it somewhere. There's so much data and stuff you can use to actually do the coaching. But the part where, how do you keep and retain players, and do you have to get, call someone up for some money to get a guy? It's just, and so there's a lot to it right now. But football doesn't seem to be right on the front right now. Yeah. It's kind of weird.
Right, because in the offseason, I mean, you're also figuring out what your coaching staff is going to look like, and let's be honest, what your front office is going to look like, because that's really what it is. I mean, these coaches used to be, it was Bill Parcells, if I want to make the food, I want to buy the ingredients, and so these coaches would be the ones that would buy the ingredients and make the food. But a little bit different when now you're doing these contract negotiations along with that, and you've got a salary cap. It's not just, hey, we've got a scholarship for you, I'm the closer, I'm coming in to get this commitment, or we're going to funnel some money through this business over here to make sure your family's happy with everything and we can get you to this school or whatever it might be, or hey, Happy, figure this out. We want this kid on campus and we're recruiting them, so you figure out how we get them. This is different. So now you're going to have GMs and player personnel directors, and so you're also creating new positions, which part of your athletic fund and paying for maybe an assistant coach now goes to that. So, I mean, yeah, there's a lot more responsibility for coaches, but there's going to have to be a lot more deviating in the coaching. Yeah.
And generally speaking, in the Big 12, generally speaking, this is not everybody, but generally speaking.
We're delegating, by the way. I said deviating, I meant delegating, so I'm a
delegating. You can deviate or delegate.
Delegate.
Generally speaking, these are halves, but they're not the have-haves. This is kind of, this isn't Alabama, LSU, Ohio State, Michigan, Texas, Auburn. It's not that. Now, listen, Texas Tech's got $4 billion to run around with, okay? They're trying to become a nouveau riche have, right? But the Big 12, and this is why they have the chip on their shoulder, that's where they're a little concerned with, well, wait a second, we're all going to share this money, but does that mean Ohio State's still going to have $30 million roster, right? Are we going to follow this thing? So there is that side of it too here in this league. Now, nobody's going to kowtow to anybody and say we can't compete or whatever, but that is, I think, a definite concern amongst these coaches. And we won't know the answer for a year maybe, right? How it actually works, because it is so fresh. Just like we didn't know how NIL was going to be for a little while, but we all assumed we knew it was going to be. It was going to be, it's not going to be something that actually is the value of endorsing a product in a small college town. It's going to be something different. So we'll see what ends up happening there. But there is a little chip on the shoulder here because it's a big league that survived and it's done well. But they have that chip on their shoulder about they're not the blue bloody have type people, and they're kind of fighting uphill on that front. And I mean, just time's going to tell on it. It really is. But that's why they have a seat at the table in the playoff, Arizona State made the playoff last year. They came in here and won the league. And it didn't go well for them, but they battled in their game, But, they need to – you need to get a little further into it, I guess. But we've only had 1 year of the 12, and it's going to go to 16 or whatever they want later. We have to wait and see how it goes. But there is certainly a sense of, they are fighting uphill against those two leagues you talked about earlier.
And there's a lot of money to go around with all these different leagues. And, Tennessee had their big – Nico Ianaliava. I am not too sure I got it right, but close. And then there was the talk
UCLA,
about
Albiaba.
Yes, that's right. Arkansas did not get that commitment from his little brother, but there was the talk of they immediately were reaching out to other schools about, or not other schools, but other quarterbacks, getting them in, and then schools started re-upping the NILs with that. And one of the players that was thrown out was Avery Johnson. Is Avery Johnson then going to go to Tennessee now if they throw a lot of money at him to play in the SEC? And he's obviously still at Kansas State where, there's a chance to win the Big 12. And I'm not sure what the Big 12 media poll is going to say for K-State. I bet it's not going to say anything.
Well, there is no
K-State,
more media
right?
poll. They eliminated the media poll, Jason, so they're not going to have it. They're not going to have it. They quit the poll.
I'm really excited to see what the media thinks on where these teams are going to end up ranked. But, K-State's in a great position, this year and the next couple of years to be that Arizona State to make the college football playoff. And now that the roster is set, maybe at this point, I don't know, this team in 2025 can just go and work out and go through fall practice and get ready to actually play a football season.
Yeah, for sure. That's what they'd like to do. And they, listen, it was fine last year, but it wasn't what they wanted. They had a couple close losses, and they didn't quite get to where they wanted to go. And it's not like a bittersweet thing. Listen, they made the choice to have Avery Johnson be their quarterback. I don't think if Will Howard, they would have been in the playoff, okay? But Will Howard went and won a national championship at Ohio State. So I think both schools probably made the right choice. Ohio State needed a veteran quarterback to to manage a $30 million roster. And Will Howard went and made some money, and Avery Johnson got to be the guy at his school that he loves, his home state school. And he's got high hopes for sure. I had a chance to chat with him just a little while ago, and that's one of the first things I asked him. He's like, what are the expectations that he is putting on the Cats in the 2025 season?
I think Big 12 championship and then college football playoff. That's what's in the back of. That's our goals we're striving for this year, and that's kind of what we've been preaching this offseason.
There's been a lot of turnover in everyone's roster, but I think always one of the best things a team can have is a quarterback coming back and a coach coming back. In today's world, there's so much of that turnover. You've stayed at K-State, and Coach Kleiman's been at K-State. What does that mean to have you guys together for a while?
I think it's just me and Coach Kleiman have a really good relationship. He trusts me, I trust him, and we can kind of go to each other and talk football. We talk things other than football, but I definitely just think we have that type of family environment at K-State where it helps us build that chemistry, and I think that translates over to the football field.
What do we see different this year from the offense? Got a new OC this year. What did we see anything different?
I think different. It'll be pretty similar, but play calling. Coach Wells might call a game a little different than Coach Riles. I think we'll just kind of have to wait and see. But definitely have some different stuff, have some additions, have some subtractions. We're going to practice the stuff, see what we do best, and then try to put that on display this fall.
People always talk about NIL and the money stuff, and I know I've talked to you about this last year. It's a different world you're living in now. You guys got the money in the pocket and all that stuff. How have you adjusted to that? And with this new house settlement, I guess everyone's going to be getting a little money. As a leader on the team, do you have to kind of like have that as any part of your leadership coming up when guys are getting paid and have jealousies, things? I don't know.
Yeah, not necessarily. I think we have our head of NIL. He does a really good job of just having guys not discuss how much money you're making, so that we can avoid all that, I guess, that jealousy or animosity in our locker room, and kind of just keep guys focusing on playing football. But definitely have to manage your time. Trying to not do a lot of NIL stuff during the season, if anything at all, unless it's a bye week. And then you kind of have to manage your time. You have to, figure out what deals are worth doing for the amount of times that you're not, spending too much time making money and not working out and doing stuff the right way. Because, we're here to be football players. We're here to win football games. So you don't want NIL to become a distraction.
I asked you last year in Vegas if other agents, coaches, people were reaching out to you, and you said, yeah, I mean, this happens. Has that cooled down, or is it ratcheted up? I mean, quarterbacks move a lot, right?
It's pretty much the same, and I think people look at whenever, people don't get their guy or like whatever, and they want to, come try to get in the or try to get tamper with players and trying to get them in the portal and get them to go to their school. It's just not something I've entertained and not something
How do you
I will
handle
entertain.
it? You just like...
Yeah, you just don't talk to them. You don't entertain it. You just kind of let them go about their business. Everybody puts flies or bugs in somebody's ear. You just got to shoo them off and continue to go about your work.
I know you're ready to play games, but it's been a long offseason. You're probably ready to practice, right? You ready to go?
I'm actually really excited to practice. Haven't practiced since the spring, so I'm excited. I'm actually excited for fall camp to roll around.
Who's ready for practice, guys? Let's go. That's Avery Johnson. He's ready for practice. And you heard it right there, Jason. He's still getting people in his ear talking. Like you mentioned, that I didn't specifically ask about Tennessee or anything, but just this is going to continue to go on. And it's a part of the thing that it's just part of football now. We don't like it. I talked to Coach Kleiman a little bit. He's going to be on with Soren later, but I just chatted with him a little bit before he sat down with Soren. And, they had Connor Riley was one of their co-offensive coordinators last year. I asked him about the new offensive coordinator. That's Matt Wells. He was around, the old Texas Tech coach, and they're excited for a new offense. But Connor Riley is an assistant offensive line coach for the Dallas Cowboys now. And one of the reasons Coach Kleiman said is like, he just didn't really want to deal with all this stuff anymore. Didn't want to deal with, it's not just recruiting, it's the re-recruiting and all that stuff. So it used to be guys would leave the NFL to come get jobs at college, because the NFL life is 11 months a year, kind of, right? And now college is kind of turns like, wait a second, I don't want to be dealing. It's bad enough to send 18 Snapchats to a 17-year-old to get him to come to your school, but then you got to keep doing it when they're 19 and all that. So I think we're going to see more coaches say, all right, you know what? I'll go sit there and coach in the NFL and maybe make more or less money. I don't know, whatever. And listen, the guy's from Texas. Maybe it's a big deal to be down in Dallas. But, like, it wasn't – he didn't leave K-State because he didn't want to be a part of K-State. I think he was just done doing some of those things. And I think that's not going to be a foreign thing in the years unless something changes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we've seen college basketball coaches that have, I mean, maybe the NBA was their ultimate destination anyway, but part of it is like, I'm taking this NBA job, and then, behind the scenes, off the record, like, I'm just done recruiting. Like, it's, dealing with, putting this team together, and I got contracts for a number of years, and I can, coach this team, and I'm not out recruiting in the middle of the season as well, that some of that goes along with it. It's an interesting part about Connor Riley there and taking that job with the Dallas Cowboys as opposed to going through all of this stuff. But even when Avery Johnson talking about juggling the decisions and being pulled in different directions during the season of NIL, I just have to weigh, is this taking up too much of my time? Am I doing this over there that, am I not working out because I'm doing an autograph signing, or I'm just throwing something out there when he was talking in generalities of something with an NIL that, that happens during the season. And he said, try not to do too much of that during the season as opposed to the off season. But thought it was interesting when he was like, I just, let them do their thing and I go about my business. So was that like, Tennessee was reaching out and he's like, no, I'm good. Somebody put a bug in the ear. It's like, no, you guys, I'm good here at Kansas State. Either way, he's playing for K-State and they got a returning quarterback. And like you talked about, Todd, there are 5 teams in the Big 12 that don't have a quarterback present at Big 12 Media Days today and tomorrow. There's 5 teams with no quarterback listed. So,
and Colorado's bringing 2 tomorrow. So
that makes up for it.
Yeah, Colorado's bringing a 17-year-old. They have a 17-year-old kid who had come to school, or he's going to be 18 during the football season.
Yeah.
But, so they Deion's like, bring them both. They're going to be here tomorrow. And listen, Mike Gundy is a great quarterback coach, and they don't have a guy here tomorrow. It's crazy to me that they're not bringing a quarterback. So
well, I mean,
BYU by the way, Jalen Daniels will be here tomorrow.
Yes.
Well, BYU's quarterback is a different reason. He's gone. But Jalen Daniels, this is his 6th year at Kansas. Yeah. If you can put your arms around that, it's unbelievable. He'll be here tomorrow.
Yeah, so, looking forward to that. So we're looking forward to this afternoon,
it's a different deal.
Yeah. Todd,
it should be a lot of fun. We got a lot of K-State stuff today, and we'll have a lot of KU stuff tomorrow. And, it's a good time down here. And I will say this, we got a lot of stadium stuff to talk about. This facility we're in is the Cowboys' practice thing that they use, and it's also part of the Frisco School District. So they play high school football games in here, and they also have practice fields. This is if you're thinking about if you're going to dream if the Chiefs make something new over in Kansas, this might be something that Clark Hunt looks at and goes, oh, okay, I see what you're talking about doing here. It's an amazing facility they've got built down here, and it's pretty wild. I guess Stephen told me this morning St. Pius is playing a football game down here this year. So
really?
There you go.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Heck yeah, that's really awesome. Yeah. Jeez. That's pretty cool. Yeah, you said
of course,
Clark.
It's during the Chiefs and Chargers games.
Oh, yeah, so, it's interesting. That's a tough one there on that Friday night. But I'm glad you said Clark because apparently I said Lamar a few times. That Mark Donovan will be meeting with Lamar to go over the decision on renovating or building new. So that'll be an interesting conversation through a séance, probably.
It could be Lamar Jr. He owns a quarter of the team.
Great point. Great point. Yeah, nailed it. Yep, that's exactly.
I saved you, buddy.
That's exactly. Todd, you're the man. Appreciate it. Looking forward to this afternoon show. Thank you, brother.
All right, boys. Have fun.
Absolutely. There's Todd Lebo. He is down there at the Big 12 Media Days presented by Bobside Auto Group and also Choice Solutions. And so hearing from Avery Johnson and later on during the program, Chris Kleiman will be sitting down with Soren Petro, and apparently Avery Johnson will be sitting down with Soren Petro as well. Some interesting stuff to hear from that dynamic on the college football front, the NIL front, the changing landscape in the House settlement on this revenue sharing and salary cap and $30 million rosters for Ohio State, and is it an even playing field, and players being pulled in different directions and everything. So yeah, it's going to be pretty fascinating to watch over the next couple of years. And then, by the way, this whole playoff thing where it's 4-4-8 or 5-11, depending on the automatic bids and what each conference is fighting for. So all of that stuff going on as well. So looking forward to this afternoon hearing from Chris Kleiman, Avery Johnson, Kathy Nelson will be on with Soren Petro as well. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. We're hanging out at the American Century Championships. Our Coverage presented by Bobside Auto Group, Zero Res, Window Nation, and Gann Asphalt and Concrete. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. We'll hear what Patrick Mahomes had to say with the Up and Adams podcast with Kay Adams, what he had to say about his wide receiver room, the talk in the offseason, and some other things. We'll hear from that next. stop by over the next few days. Patrick Mahomes stopped by with Kay Adams to talk with her on the Up and Adams podcast. And when do we think this was taped, guys? When do we think this podcast was taped with Patrick Mahomes?
I know it was the same day as her scheduled first pitch at the Cubs game. Am I correct in that? Because I think that's what she was saying. She had to reschedule to do this interview.
I don't know because they're in Kansas City.
Yeah.
And I also would love to know what school they're at that they're filming the Allstate commercial at. What high school are they doing that? What high school football field are they on?
It looks the same as the Mahomes and Otto place.
So do we know which one that was? So maybe it's the same one they go to. There's got to be somebody out there that's listening that knows exactly where they're taping these things. But the reason I ask is because in one of these clips, she says, Max Crosby made news yesterday saying that, you're the best in the league. And Max Crosby did say that about Patrick Mahomes, but that was like a month ago in which he said that. So I'm assuming Patrick also might be on vacation, on a boat somewhere. There are pictures out there. So I'm not sure that he's filming an Allstate commercial. Maybe he would do that while there were OTAs or mini camps or something in Kansas City that he had to be here anyway, and they would schedule around his time to do the Allstate commercial. So I'm going to say this was like last month or something, like during one of the OTs. That's my guess. Sterling, what do you got?
I think it was yesterday. It's just into the future. It's just, yeah.
You think this was live yesterday?
It was live.
Good to know.
Yeah.
Good to know. Okay, great. Well, let's hear what Sterling thinks was live yesterday. While Patrick Mahomes was on a boat over the weekend, he was back in Kansas City filming Allstate commercials yesterday. Let's play the Tom Brady one first. How about that? Kay Adams was talking about Tom Brady and what he said to Kevin Hart that we played on the air when they were in the cold tub. And here's Kay Adams and Patrick Mahomes talking about the respect that Tom Brady has for Patrick Mahomes and their relationship.
Tom Brady had this incredible thing to say about how if he had to pick one person to sort of pass what he was able to do, it is you. He could have said nobody. No, I don't see anybody able to do that. You're in year 9, which is wild. Yeah, wild since you were drafted. How much more do you think about your legacy now as 30 approaches, as year 9 is here?
I think that's always in the back of your mind, even from the beginning of my career. But at the end of the day, it's about taking it a day by a time, a day and a day, just continuing to do that. And that's something that I've been conscious of knowing that how blessed I am to be in Kansas City, to have all these great players around me. And having Tom, a guy like that, say that, I mean, it just motivates me even more. And I've actually talked to Tom a good amount this offseason, and it's cool that he wants to give me advice. He didn't have to be like that. He's such a good dude, and I have so much respect for him, and I'll take any advice he gives me.
What does he say to you? What's the best
advice? I got to keep the secrets, But he always talks about being yourself. He thinks that, which I truly believe too, is that guys can spot when you're not authentic and you're not putting in the work. And that's something that he did every single day. That's why guys respected him so much. And that's all I'm going to do for the rest of my career. And I feel like I've done so far is I'm always myself. No matter if you like me or if you don't like me, you know that I'm giving everything I can to win the football games.
Yeah, I'm hoping, guys, that Tom Brady's advice to him was, look, Patrick, I miss it. Play till you're 50. Do not retire, ever. Play till you're 50. That's my advice to you, Patrick.
Stay here forever.
I can't wait till I get retired. Stay here. Stay as long as you can. Keep even if it costs you your family. Keep playing. Never stop. I don't think that would be the advice that Brady would give him, but I hope that wouldn't be the case. But I would like the advice to be
DIY
like,
your own jiu-jitsu training. That's the advice.
Oh, brother!
Oh my God!
Dylan from the top rope, WWE.
Wow, that took a strange turn.
Did you just pump yourself up? Were you trying to pump the crowd up back there?
That was a windmill dunk for Jimmy.
He did windmill for no reason. We were talking about how much Tom Brady respects Patrick Mahomes. But that's the advice I would like Tom Brady to give him is the, just play. Keep playing. But it is true. Like, I mean, I feel like Mahomes is pretty much his authentic self. Like, I don't know. Anybody feel like he's fake or anything like that. I mean, he does a really good job of saying nothing while talking, post-game press conferences.
But he admits he says nothing while talking.
Right.
Like, he even admits
It's a talent.
that aspect.
Yeah, he even presents it himself by saying, "This is what I'm doing. I'm authentically telling you that this is what I'm doing. I am not trying to lie to you and say that I am not self-aware that this is what I'm doing. No, this is what I'm doing." So maybe that's the advice Tom Brady gave him. Talk and say nothing. Say a lot while saying nothing. I'm not sure if that's the advice that he gave him. Let's play the clip about the wide receiver room that we've had conversations about how drastically different this wide receiver room is, even from a couple of years ago when they beat the 49ers in the Super Bowl, and you know, especially when you're talking about all the drop passes and that season and trying to just get to the Super Bowl when it felt like there were, you know, some double agents on the Chiefs wide receiver group. But here's Kay Adams talking with Patrick Mahomes about his weapons this year.
You won 15 games with a banged-up team, not your number one wide receiver, a full complement. In that receiver room, what are you most excited about, outside of hopefully health?
I think it's just going to come from everywhere. I mean, obviously, you got Rasheed being back. He looks great. You have Xavier Worthy, who came on so strong at the end of last year. You have Hollywood Brown healthy again. Guys everywhere. You add in Travis Kelce, a Hall of Famer, Noah Gray, a great tight end, and everybody that we've added to all those different rooms. Well, we have so many weapons. Let's go out there and just maximize it all. It's not going to be just one person. It's going to be the entire offense going out there and showcasing what the Kansas City Chiefs truly are.
There's a lot of, they did this, free agency, draft, the other teams in the AFC, and I'm like, okay, but the Chiefs are like, I honestly think it might be your deepest receiver room. Would you agree?
Yeah, I mean, I think it is going to be the deepest. I mean, it's hard to always say, like, you had Tyreek and Travis Kelce, Hall of Famers in the prime of their careers, and that it's hard to always say that it could be deeper than that, but at the same time, it's not the depth. I mean, it's going to be hard to make cuts because we have so many great receivers that we could be 8, 9 deep, the guys I can see making the roster, and that's what you want. You want competition. And we have that. Brett Veach, Coach Reed have done a great job of bringing guys in, and they've been competing, and we're excited to get to St. Joe, Missouri, and go out there and compete and showcase who we are.
Yeah, I mean, just looking back at the season when they beat the 49ers, like the wide receiver group as to who he was throwing to, like Rashee Rice, number one, that was good as a rookie. Then what? MVS, Kadarius Toney, Sky Moore, McCole Hardman, Justin Watson. Like, that was Richie James that I was pretty excited about, but that did not work out. Like, that was the group. Like, you're talking about, like, your fourth receiver, or your fourth receiver was like Sky Moore or McCole Hardman or Justin Watson. Take your pick as to your fourth receiver being that guy. This year, you know, your fourth receiver is, you know, Juju or Jalen Royals with Rice, Worthy, and Hollywood Brown. And either Juju was your number one when they beat the Eagles that season. He was your number one wide receiver. 3 years later, he's like your number four. And obviously they had Travis Kelce was better a couple of years ago, but just the overhaul in that yeah, this is – I know that they've had years where they've had Tyreek Hill and Sammy Watkins, but if this team is healthy, this will be the deepest group of weapons that Patrick Mahomes has had with, yes – an older Travis Kelce, but that wide receiver group would be a better wide receiver group than he has had, including when you throw in Tyreek Hill and Sammy Watkins, if everybody stays healthy.
Yeah, although you mentioned Richie James, and that was the guy I was so high on. I was talking about him before he came to KC, and I'm like, guys, watch out. Richie James could be a Chief, and it's going to be it makes a lot of sense. Then he was a Chief, and I was taking victory laps. And I was a dumbass because Richie James did not do what we thought he was going to do here in KC. But no,
you definitely were. It was you only.
He's a Super Bowl champion. You know,
fair.
It's a great point.
A lot of people are. But
the one thing I want to find myself wary of is we talked about this a couple years ago, maybe that year, when we said, "Wow, there's 7 wide receivers." I mean, who could they cut? How can you cut Amir Smith-Marset? How can you let him go to the Panthers? I mean, this is just so
for a 7th rounder.
I mean, and then we found out, the difference here is this is less potential because we've seen Xavier Worthy do it. We've seen Rashee Rice do it. We've seen Hollywood Brown do it in a different jersey. We've seen Juju Smith-Schuster do it. So it is different, but I guess I do want to at least try and have that in the back of my mind of, we have said that once before, of how can you cut any of these guys? And we found out, you could have cut 6 of them.
Let's hear what Patrick Mahomes has to say about the key to the Chiefs' success on offense, what that will be this year.
State Farm is a key to success as an adult, as a company, as an entity in a lot of different ways. What is one specific key to success for your Chiefs this year?
I think it's just us having fun again. I mean, it's always been fun playing on the Kansas City Chiefs, and that's what makes it special. And I feel like last year, I don't want to say it was pressure, but guys wanted to go out there and win every single week, not for the fun in the game, just because we're supposed to. Let's go out there and have fun. I mean, the wins will come if we play the way that we know we can play. We have the talent, we have the coaches, we work harder than anybody in the NFL. So let's go out there and have fun and let the results handle themselves.
When's the last time we think Mahomes in this offense, we're having fun, like every game was this is fun, this is what we want to do? What,
22?
22. Yeah, that's what I was thinking too, because even 23 we had that stretch of football where we watched them lose to the Packers, lose to the Eagles, lose to the Bills, and then Mahomes, that culmination of frustration boiling over, and the Kadarius Toney penalty and yelling at the refs. That was not a fun season for them offensively, because everybody's dropping the football, and you had this team trying to figure out who is going to ever step up and be a good wide receiver, and they end up winning the Super Bowl that year. And then last year, when it was sort of a sludge through the season offensively, that you just felt like they were playing in sand way too often, and it didn't look like they were having a whole lot of fun. 2022, they were the number 1 offense, and that second half against the Eagles looked like a lot of fun. They were having tons of fun out there playing, and it feels like it's been since then, since this team has just gone out and just offensively let's just go roll. Let's just go do it. Let's have fun. But also you got to have success to have fun.
Yeah, and I found that it's an interesting, really the Chiefs are the only team, maybe the Eagles could say it too, because how many teams would love to not have fun but win the amount of games the Chiefs have? I mean, every other team in the National Football League. But I get what Patrick's trying to say, because I think having fun also allows them to play a little freer and maybe think less. And maybe then, we always talk about explosive plays and the deep ball. But I think that helps when you're trying to throw that deep ball and you're trying to make these explosive plays happen. It's not going to happen when you're tight, when you're focused on not making a mistake more than trying to think about what could potentially be the positive outcome of this. You're thinking more negative than positive. When that's the case, you play tight. Yeah, you might win, but that's when you have those 3-point games because you're just better than the other team. You're just more talented, or you have Andy Reid and you have Patrick and all these situations. So, yeah, playing, I know when people say, you hear them say, we want to have more fun, they're not talking about 8-year-olds eating clementines after the game, but more fun, I think, just playing a little looser.
Maybe if they gave clementines and Capri Suns and juice boxes after the game, they would have more fun. If that works, let's do it, man. Let's tap into whatever's going to work, that childlike spirit. Whatever it is, tap into that. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. We'll hear what Patrick Mahomes had to say about the talk. Oh, the talk. A lot of talk this offseason. More Zone coming up next, live from Lake Tahoe, the American Century Championship, right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
I'm honestly just ready to play football again. Whenever you lose, you kind of have this taste in your mouth that you want to go out there and revenge that or whatever you want to say. But at the same time, I feel like I've had to sit back and just listen to people talk, and I'm like, let's just play football and just handle it all out there. And I don't really want to talk about it. I just want to go out and show who we are as a Kansas City Chiefs.
I'm seeing the terms revenge tour. I've
Ready.
actually said
He's ready to go. I love to hear that, though, right? Just to talk. Let's just go play football, man. Everybody out there just talking and talking and talking. He hears it. We know he hears it. And Petty Pat is a fantastic Pat. It's the best Pat, actually. Scorched earth. I said, what was it, going into the 2022 season, that it was going to be a Bleep You tour for Patrick Mahomes after they traded Tyreek Hill, and everybody doubted how good they would be. And it was the end of that AFC Championship game against the Bengals, that second half in overtime. It was going to be the Bleep You tour for Patrick, and he won the MVP. I think that's what it's going to be this year too.
Everyone,
it's going to be a Bleep You tour.
He completed the Bleep You tour. I was going to say he bleeped, but I don't want to say the following line. Everyone.
Not me.
Yeah.
Just the you, as in the proverbial
the
NFL.
Royal you. The Royal.
The Royal.
You. Yeah.
Yes, that's right. You know what he did that year too? Is he happened to be on Quarterback, the Netflix series too. The season 2 of Quarterback dropped today. We'll see what that looks like with Joe Burrow, Jared Goff, and Kirk Cousins again. So Kirk Cousins comes back. So there you go. We'll see how good that. I'll be watching it.
I'll consider watching it. If I get sick for a couple days, I'll watch it then. That's my get sick, I'll throw it on show.
Yeah, I hope it's better than the wide receiver was last year. Hope it's as good as quarterback was a couple of years ago. Although Patrick Mahomes was in that as well, so that certainly makes a difference. Program up next.